WTKW-FM and HD, Bridgeport, Syracuse. WTKV, Minetto, Oswego. We are live. This is TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
And welcome. It is 9 o'clock, the TK Tavern on the Hill. Pregame tailgate broadcast officially underway. It's Gomez from Gomez & Company on the flagship station here at the world headquarters from TK99 and TK105. Adam Terry joining us on the Hill here soon. In fact, I'll check right now. Adam, is Adam there? I know it's in transit, and it's a busy Saturday morning here as it's senior day in the Dome as the Orange get ready to play and take on UConn in an old-school Big East matchup on the Hill and a chance for the Orange to go 8-3 on the season. We will break that down and its implications for the team and the program coming up a little bit later on here in the show. And then also it's a big day for the family of Coach Mack. Dick McPherson, as Coach Mack's name, will be added to the Ring of Honor. We'll talk about that with Adam Terry coming up here a little bit later on as well. We are just getting started, and we're streaming, by the way, on QSportsTalk.com. If you want to log in and say hi and come into the stream chat and check out what's going on here and up on the Hill. When Adam joins us, it's always fun to kind of see and hear what's going on the quad as we get ready for the noon kickoff. Last weekend, of course, nice win for the Orange. One of the highlights here from a voice of the Orange, Matt Park, from last weekend's win against Cal.
Kyle McCord takes the snap. Give to LeQuint off the left side. Burster Hall has a 20. Clean grass in front, down the 10, wide of the numbers, and into the end zone. LeQuint Allen from 30 yards has the rushing touchdown. It is his longest run of the year and his third touchdown.
One of the exciting plays from last week's win at Cal, a nice road win in conference, which is always important here during the season. But that put the Orange at 7-3 for the season. And again, a chance to go 8-3. And then we'll keep an eye on some of the other games around the conference. Obviously, with the Miami and SMU playing today, we'll break that down as to what the combinations are of wins and losses that propels SU into perhaps an even better bowl game. But we are just getting started here. Again, if you want to join us in the stream chat of QSportsTalk.com, you can do that. You can also text in, by the way. It is 605-8874. It's the TK Tavern on the Hill pregame broadcast here on TK99 and TK105. And we will continue right after Eddie Money on TK99 and TK105. Hello. Oh,
how we doing, man?
Good. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't. I just now got the text there that you were ready to go with. It's all good. We'll go here right after. Got a couple minutes left in the Eddie Money here.
You're good.
What's happening? How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, not much going on. Just checking out the scenery of the quad. It's pretty quiet.
Quiet. Early
Pretty
start.
quiet.
And then a misty start to the day.
Well,
we're talking with Tim earlier. I don't know if I'd prefer just that constant little mist or just an outright downpour and get it over with. be done with it.
I think the mist is going to allow people to. Yeah, no, I would go a torrential downpour right now and just move on.
Just move on.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it. The mist is going to deter some people. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's just kind of a weird. Just. Bring it, because it almost becomes a novelty at that point, like when it's like a snowstorm.
Yeah, get it in, get it done. Next week will be interesting, right? Like it should be pretty cold next week.
Yeah, kind of regular old school late November Northeastern football. Oh, Nelly.
Yeah, the internal stuff at Myron Court is pretty cool. First time I've really it's open. They've got stuff going on. It's pretty interesting.
Cool.
So between Archibald and the stadium, that little alcove that they just made.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. Last time when we did one of these, they were still working on it, and then
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just moving your camera.
Okay. Yeah. I can adjust it from here too. I mean, I can.
Well, I'm gonna try and move you down a bit, or move. Try and get you and Terry the same height. That's good. Yeah.
There we are.
Cool. Thank you.
It is Sir Paul Velcro, ladies and gentlemen, helping us out there. It's Velcro because he has yet to learn to tie his shoes properly. And then also his mother named him after Sir Paul McCartney. Hence the nickname Sir Paul Velcro. You have any nickname growing up there, Adam?
Bigfoot. Right? Like,
That's a good one.
Sometimes you get in the woods and you got, actually back then, like now more so nowadays than when I was a kid. But, I had a size 16 shoe when I was 16. So my son's trending on that path right now.
Is he?
My oldest. Well, even my middle. My daughter's, she's size 10.5 women's at 12.
Wow.
Yeah,
is she,
so she can play some volleyball.
I was going to say, did she get the athletic gene in the Terry clan?
Yeah, no, she's
cool.
She's playing volleyball, doing some travel stuff. Had a good modified year. 7th grade this year. Last year I had to con her into trying out. Like, for some of these sports, it gets a little bit ridiculous how young these kids get started. But to develop skill and things like that, like. It's the first sport she ever wanted to do. I tried lacrosse. I tried different, soccer, and volleyball was, I put it across to her, and her
gave it a whirl. Okay.
Her nurse at the school, they were doing like a, height or something at some point. She was like, you're going to be pretty tall. Yeah.
This TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
The TK Tavern on the Hill pregame broadcast. Live from the world headquarters here in Armory Square. And Adam Terry, live from the quad up on campus. Adam, how you doing this morning? How was the trip in for you? Any snow to deal with? Anything like that?
No, it was fantastic. There was a little bit of mist coming in, kind of the same what we see right now on the quad. So, travel's pretty easy coming in. And, now it's just... Can we populate the quad with some warm bodies to get this UConn game kicked off right?
And for you, are you done with coaching duties for the year for your son's team? Is it all?
Yeah, unfortunately. I think it's it's kind of one of those. We lost in the sectional semifinals to a pretty good Aquinas team that was led by Mo Jackson, former Syracuse wide receiver. So I don't think it was our best game, but they ended up winning and. Now they just won last night against Lancaster out of Section 6, and now they're going to go, I think one of the teams you don't want to face is CBA Syracuse. So they play the Section 3 team this week. So it'll be interesting.
Well, with regards, just some final thoughts on last weekend's road trip out west. I know Coach Fran Brown had said during the week that one of his goals for the team is to get a strong start. And They certainly did, and they followed suit, and whatever they worked on during practice worked because it was a great start to the game last week.
Yeah, no, they came out and they were flying around, they were playing well. It was a situation where they were stopped a little bit early and had to settle for some kicks, but I think overall it was the best 3-phase game that they've played, and now they're going to go against a UConn team that. When you look at their wins, you're like, some of these are kind of the group of 5 type teams, but you're 7-3, and you're going to have to match them on the defensively. You've got to be stout in the run game because they have 3 guys that can really run the football, and then offensively, you've got to be able to pick up the blitzes. I mean, Jim Mora Jr. is a guy that spent a lot of time in the NFL, and they're not necessarily exotic blitzes, but they're going to bring some blitzes to you. They're going to add +1 in your protection. So you're going to have to be well-schooled in your rules going into a game like this.
Coach Fran, earlier this week on the nighttime show, talked in general about the number of former NFL coaches who are now in college football, and UConn has obviously a bunch of those guys, and so does Syracuse for that matter. Has that always been the case and then just never paid attention, Adam? Or is that kind of a fairly recent thing where some of these jobs for an NFL coach are more attractive on a college level?
Well, I mean, you're probably getting paid just as much, if not more, to play on the college level. And in with the advent of NIL, you're looking at a situation where it's more along the pro style. Yes, your head coach has to go out and recruit, but, it's kind of shaking hands and kissing babies And then you have a player personnel department that's really doing a lot of the heavy legwork. So historically, that's how it's been in the NFL. And now with NIL becoming kind of free agency and the development and recruiting of high school athletes becomes the draft in comparison to the NFL, that's where they're really accustomed to doing it. And then, in the past, you haven't been able to say, hey, I need a quarterback. Well, now you can go into the transfer portal. You can pony up some money and go get a quarterback, just like they did with Kyle McCord, and the relationship that Fran Brown had when he was recruiting earlier in his career. Those are the things that really lend itself to that. But, a guy like Jim Moore Jr., you scratch your head a little bit going to UConn, but, sometimes you run your course and you're looking at something that you can stay 5, 6, 8 years, where if you're not producing at the NFL level, you're done within 2 to 3 years.
Coach Fran, last week, again, final thoughts on the win over Cal. This was Coach Fran, his press conference on Monday about the win and how he viewed it there.
I felt like we played complimentary football. We found a kicker, as I told you guys a few weeks ago. Like, he kept competing, he did a good job. We found a good corner, the freshman corner, that went out and stuck one of the better receivers in the country. 13 to me is Zaire. He's just really good, and we was able to go put 25 on him, and him being able to stick him all day. And then just who Kyle is and what he does with the offense and how he spreads the football, and us Quentin, all those guys. So on all sides of the ball, Fidel Diggs led those guys. Him and Marlo did a really good job on the defensive side of the ball. So I felt like it was the first time that we had a chance to play complimentary football against a good football team.
In a nutshell, Coach Fran, through his eyes from last week, and pretty much spot on.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic to watch. And this is where you start to see, right now, I think Syracuse has been known for their transfer portal acquisitions. And you look at a guy like Davian Kerr, whose twin is going to come to Syracuse next year. They're both Bloomfield, Connecticut products, the home of Julian Pollard. But most importantly out of there was Dwight Freeney. So you look at that, and you look at the pedigree of what some of these younger guys are doing, and he matched up well, and it was a guy that you had to defend. I mean, he was, as Fran says, 13 was a real, he was one of the best in the country, and you put a freshman out there, a true freshman at that, and he does a fantastic job, comes up with that interception on that far boundary, and really kept that defense moving, giving the opportunity for the offense to really get themselves going.
That is the voice of Adam Terry. We'll be doing a game with Voice of the Orange, Matt Park, coming up at noon for the kickoff. It's Gomez here from Gomez & Company. It is the TK Tavern on the Hill pregame broadcast. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back here on the flagship station for SU football, TK 99 and TK 105.
TK 99 and
All righty then. Off and running. What time do they do the quad walk? Is that usually at 9:45-ish?
Yeah, it's right towards the end of our broadcast.
We're talking during the week, Coach Mack. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here this morning as well, too, the Ring of Honor. And I did a nighttime show with him for a long time, and even before I worked here, the games were on the AM station in town, and I did a show with him there. So I knew him sort of well, for the same way I would know any of the other coaches there. And then when he took the job for the New England Patriots, and I saw him the following summer somewhere in town. I know his daughters, Maureen and Janet, quite well, and I said, "Hey, Coach, how's it going with the Patriots?" And he goes, "Irving Fry has got a handgun."
I've heard the story. Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the NFL, I guess, in 1988 or whatever year it was.
Yeah, no, I think it's that's a different beast.
Irving Fry's got a handgun. That's how it's going.
Oh man, yeah, he had we were trying to recall some of the Mac-isms over the years, but the one that he always came with for us, probably in like second week of October, was they'll always forget September, sometimes October, but never November. So, and that was the generation of being able to go and play in meaningful bowl games.
Yeah.
He was talking specifically about like, hey, you win in November, everybody's just going to remember what you did these last 3-4 weeks.
That's true. You're right. That's kind of, we talk about that all the time too. I mean, people my age that grew up watching New Year's Day bowl games back in that day, there was only 4. So if you were playing, it was the Cotton Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, or I don't know what the other big one would have been at the time, but you were good.
Sugar, orange, cotton, rose.
Rose, yeah. And that was really it. It was Keith Jackson doing one of the games, and whoever else might have been his broadcast partner. But so if you were in a bowl game, you were legit, undefeated or one loss or whatever. Now there's how many bowl games are there?
Way too many.
40? I couldn't even. I'd fail that test. In
the realm, I think, of 40.
Yeah, I think that's probably somewhere there, right?
Because that's 60 some odd to 80 some odd teams that are going to go and play. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to be 6-6.
Yeah, we're back. Might have been. I can't remember. Might have been Chris Gedney at the time playing in whatever bowl game, but Keith Jackson called that game, and to have Keith Jackson say your name, he said, was like the coolest thing in the world. Like, whoa, Nelly,
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Labatt, registered U.S. trademark of Labatt Brewing Company, Ltd.
We are live. This is TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
It's the TK Tavern on the Hill tailgate broadcast. Gomez here live from the world headquarters in Armory Square. Adam Terry live from the quad up on the hill getting ready for that noon kickoff. Going back to just a couple more thoughts on last week's win at Cal. We had Kyle McCord in studio this week, as we do every week, and had mentioned about the same topic we were just talking about, that Coach Fran wanted a strong start, which obviously happened for the Orange, and I'd mentioned it to Kyle. It's always great on the road to get an early start, a couple early touchdowns to take the home crowd out of it a little bit. And he kind of giggled a little bit because apparently that was not going to be an issue at the Cal game.
That's for sure. You got into a game like that, and it was interesting because you hear, that was a Pac-10, Pac-12 school, and you really don't get much interaction with it, especially on the East Coast. And you look at it, and it's a historic stadium, and then you look up, and they call it Tightwad Hill up on the left-hand side, and Matt had been doing some research on it, and there's a Sports Illustrated article in what was it, probably 60 or 61, one of those, where you go out there and Syracuse is number 10, Cal's number 11. We get blown out 43-0, and one of the lines was like, they must have mixed something in their pot, because that's what the fans must have been seeing, with a number 10 losing to a number 11. So that was an interesting one. And then the other part of the stadium too is it sits on a fault. It sits on a fault line. So there's a evacuation for any type of earthquake. There's usually you just see exits, and this is how you exit in the case of a fire. This was how you exit in case of a earthquake that rumbles through there. So that was the other interesting part, is because you walk right out on the field, and it's one of the big placards as you walk out.
Well, that's cool. Different experience for you and the team. And when we had Kyle in here this past week, we started just talking about, because he grew up a New York Jets fan, and that's why he wears the number 6 for Mark Sanchez. But he was a football nerd, like a lot of guys are when they're young. But we started talking about his collection of jerseys when he was a young guy.
It was pretty surreal, because growing up in elementary school, every day I would wear a different player's jersey to school. That was my thing. And now to kind of be in that position, having younger kids look up to me and wear my jersey is pretty sweet.
Who were the jerseys of the time that you would have been wearing to school?
I had some good ones. Obviously, like the legends, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, all that. But I had some good ones like Rashard Mendenhall.
Oh wow!
Random jerseys. Brian Urlacher was another one.
That's cool.
Yeah, I had like one player in each team.
Did you really?
Yeah, that was kind of my thing. Like,
what was the most random one?
Maurice Jones-Drew on the Jags. Trying to think. Eddie Royal
from the Denver Broncos. But the whole conversation came up because I've been seeing little kids wearing Kyle McCord jerseys up at the Dome, and I asked them about that, and that's how we turned into that conversation there.
Yeah, for me, I never had any when I was growing up, but I will say my son's only asked for one jersey, right? And we went to the AFC Championship game last year, Baltimore versus KC, and I go, hey, I'll buy you an authentic one, whatever one you want, and he ended up going with a Roquan Smith, and I was like, okay, that's the closest guy that I've seen to Ray Lewis in a long time, so I'm cool with that. And then, fast forward to the training camp this past year, Mark DeLeon, the son of George DeLeon, is a linebacker coach for the Ravens, so we went down there, and they roll it out for the alums, and my son was able to get a picture and autograph from Roquan on the back of the jersey. So needless to say, he's not wearing that to school. But in a situation like this, you see a boatload of McCord jerseys. You're starting to see some Gadsden jerseys. So it's fun. I mean, it's that era where me as a parent, that's what we did. Is you went to school, whether it was a team or that's what you wore, right? And now some of these kids are really getting into it, and to listen to McCord's collection, the selection of some of these guys, I don't know, but Rashard Mendenhall, okay, I can follow you, but Eddie Royal, fast guy on the outside, I get it. Urlacher, I can understand.
Yeah,
he just didn't have an Adam Terry jersey. I mean, it's a hot commodity. There's very few out there. And they're not being worn a lot, so I understand. He might have that framed on his wall.
When you were playing, did you ever, were there some Adam Terry jerseys if you saw out and about walking around?
Yeah, no, I had a select demographic, female, probably 35 to 50. And, it was just one of those where you would go to some of these. I was heavily active in Special Olympics, and I was a spokesperson for the state of Maryland, so they were, my Special Olympians had them, and, a lot of the parents were wearing them as well. But
cool.
my collection on the wall has grown over time. So I have a John Mackey that, he autographed for me before he passed, a Jim Brown that he signed for me. And a lot of Syracuse guys, and then I have a Deion Sanders, a Jamal Lewis, and guys that I played with. And this was before the jersey swap in the NFL became a big thing. So, needless to say, it was, that was the one thing I wanted to do was collect as many of the former Orange that I could. And, they sit kind of coming down the stairs into my basement.
That's cool. Those are good stories about him. That's the voice of Adam Terry up on campus on the quad, getting ready for that noon kickoff as the Orange get ready for UConn in the Dome. It's Gomez here from TK99 and TK105, the flagship station for SU football. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
TK99.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool jersey. When I was I was again a different demographic, but I had a Ray Nitschke. That's like cool.
That's a solid one.
That was a solid one from that era. A Johnny Unitas.
I have a Johnny Unitas as well.
Do you?
Yep.
I mean, it was just
not autographed, but
no. I mean, these are the ones that you would get at Sears in the in the Husky section.
That's where I shopped.
That's it, the Husky section. And then I had it's just a random Michigan one that I got. There used to be a store, Champions Factory Outlet.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Remember that? You'd go there and they would have like one-offs, or, there was probably something wrong with it, T-shirts misprints or whatever, but they sold them for like a couple of bucks.
Uh-huh.
So I had a very cool Michigan jersey. It looked, like when you'd buy at the Michigan student, gift shop or whatever, campus store. It had a Champions for a couple of bucks, so I bought it.
They had one. They had a Champions outlet in Lake George, near where I grew up. And I would go, and before school, we would grab like, because that's when they got the rejects from some of these universities. So, I think I had some Michigan shorts. I had some Duke shorts. Never had any Syracuse ones. But they were good for gym, bang around in, and sometimes they. Instead of on the front of the quad, it would be on the side of the leg where the logo would be. So you just dealt with it.
Yeah, it's like whatever. A couple of bucks.
Yeah,
and...
starting to get some more people here. Food truck. People are already lining up for the walk, trying to get their spot underneath trees.
Okay. Is it? I'm looking out. It looks like it's at least downtown at the moment a little more than a mist, but not like rain. But I can see.
Yeah, I would say this is a mist. This is not enough where you would take cover. You're fine. If you want an umbrella, it's okay, but you really don't need one.
I went to, back in the 80s, like I said, I was friends with Coach Mack's daughters and some other friends, some mutual friends. So we would go to his house after the games, and he always had a party, a little reception or whatever. And then I went in, and Jim Brown was on the couch talking with Lou Groza. Lou Groza.
Lou Groza, wow.
Yeah, it was actually kind of cool. And there was a bunch of former Floyd was there at one of the after party or after game parties there. It was actually kind of a cool spot. In hindsight, I didn't, I guess, maybe appreciate it as much at that age, but looking back, I was like, oh my God, it's like a Hall of Fame of people in Coach Mack's living room right now.
I would venture to say that. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Lou Groza and Jim Brown. I met Jim Brown a couple times through, whether it's being a former player, introducing myself, and then there was a Super Bowl in Miami, and we were supposed to watch Wyclef Jean start at 11 o'clock at the Fontainebleau, and he didn't come on until like 3 a.m. Oh. But about 12:30, Jim Brown walked in, and my wife looks at me because I just stopped talking to her, and I make a beeline over. Just so I can just start talking to him.
Save it for the air. Actually, it's kind of because they'll come up here in a way.
5, the flagship station of SU football.
The TK Tavern on the Hill pregame tailgate broadcast live from the world headquarters here in Armory Square. Adam Terry live from the quad up at SU, getting ready for the noon kickoff. Syracuse hosting UConn. Big game today in the Dome. It is Senior Day, and we'll get to that in a moment. But also a big day for Coach Mack and his family, who will be on hand as Coach Mack's name gets added to the Ring of Honor, where it should be. It's just a great honor, and we were just kind of sharing some stories here off the air, but maybe you heard us on QSportsTalk.com about Coach Mack, and there are just so many great Coach Mack stories and Coach Mackisms, etc. And I was telling that I had met Jim Brown. I didn't really meet him. I saw him at Coach Mack's house after one of the football games, and he happened to be on the couch at Coach Mack's house talking to Lou Groza. So like a couple of legendary old school Hall of Fame names. And you were just telling me how you met Jim Brown at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I met him prior to, but one of the times we went down to the Super Bowl, it was in Miami. My wife and I we had just had our son at the beginning of the season, so we decided we wanted to take a vacation. We ended up I purchased the tickets and then sold the tickets in order to pay for the extravagant vacation. And one of them was Wyclef Jean was supposed to play in the Fontainebleau at about 11 o'clock, and he never came on until 3, but at about 12:30, Jim Brown starts walking in, and, I'm talking with my wife and all that good jazz, and then I just shut my mouth and I go beeline right over to Jim Brown, start talking some Syracuse football with him, and, it was cool. One of those where you're kind of like what you're saying. You don't realize sometimes where you are and who you're talking to, but that was one of the instances where I do.
That's cool. And I've seen, and you as well, some over the years, Jim Brown at the Dome for various halftime ceremonies, etc. And I remember in the press box, Jim Brown was in there, and also Larry Zonka, which was cool, obviously great. But then what strikes you when you first see these guys, how big, I mean, honestly, big, Larry Zonka walking past you and shaking his hand, and the same with Jim Brown, just the size of these guys from back in that day.
Yeah, we've done a couple broadcasts. I think it was the first year that I started doing the radio. We did a spring football game, and they had Coughlin come in, and they had Zonka come in, and Floyd was around, and all of these guys that, I'm a Syracuse junkie and through and through, so it was interesting to see. But like you're saying, I mean, some of these guys, they were pretty well built, even into their 60s and some into their 70s, and Father Time is undefeated on some of these, but like these guys were, they looked like they could throw the pads on and maybe get 2 plays in a series. And I don't know if you move the football with them, but they sure as heck looked the part as they were moving around.
I was showing one of the guys here at work video from the 1987 game against West Virginia, that famous 2-point conversion with Michael Owens to go into undefeated that season. And when I was watching that video, Don McPherson is at quarterback, but one of the things that sticks out at watching that video is you can tell even on video from 1987, the size of the guys on the team at that time on video, let alone in person, but you can tell at that era, they were just big. I mean, the line was big, the tight ends were big, everybody was huge.
Well, I think that's the thing is, the grandfather of this program is Coach Mack. I mean, he built it, he established it. He was in a situation where they won they didn't win the national championship. I should recount that. Yeah. In my eyes, they won a national championship. You had the tie-dye issue there, but in a world that he recruited guys that were willing to put in the work, and they were big, fast, strong, and you look back at some of those teams, and you look at some of the pictures, and they have the oversized shoulder pads, but those guys really look the part. And as guys are coming back and the alumni base is really starting to be re-energized, they're large human beings. And I'm not as young as I used to be. My last game here was 20 years ago, but we had a pretty large team, and then you saw the descending, and now you start to see the ascending. And Coach Mack is the guy that really established that, and the coaching staff and the guys that coached underneath him. That's the awesome part of the recruiting tree, that guys that were underneath him.
Well, we can play this clip here. This is Coach Fran Brown earlier this week. We were talking about UConn and Coach Mack and obviously all that came up with that. But here's Coach Fran talking about what he's learned just from the people who have told him all these Coach Mack stories.
Yeah, I'm excited about him. I heard a lot of great things. I mean, a lot of his players that he developed into being men, and just some great stories. I mean, one of the best stories I've heard was just Jim Tressel and all the things that he's done, where he would walk around with a tape recorder and say a lot of things. And I tend to do that time after time due to the fact of Coach Tressel telling me that that's something that Coach Mack have done. So I just kind of picked up that habit. It's pretty cool because you kind of don't forget when you go back and listen to what you stated earlier in practice.
Little something that he picked up through another party that Coach Mack used to do is kind of tape record yourself, so you go back later in the day and listen to what you said to everybody, because you forget.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a Hall of Fame coach that has an influence on a lot of people, and some, you forget, or in this scenario, it is kind of that telephone where it goes from Coach Mack to Tressel, and now you hop forward into the world of Fran Brown as the head coach. And, when you can recall some of these scenarios and how it was established, I mean, that's pretty awe-inspiring with what the gap is from when Coach Mack's last game and into, the start of the Fran Brown era here. And you're talking about you're talking about a tape recorder, right? Like, yeah. We've developed past that point, and you're probably talking to your phone or you're talking to Siri in order to have something recorded. But, now you're in a situation where it's pretty cool, right? Like, the generations that have spanned and in different points in the generation of Syracuse, there's some gaps, but utilize, some of the methodology of Coach Mack, I mean, that's pretty cool.
You mentioned tape recorder. Obviously, it's not something that's done, but I still hear, coaches and players talking about watching, like in this case, UConn on film. Yeah, I watch game film. It's just kind of the terminology, obviously, that has just continued on. But it's not. It hasn't been film in probably 30 years. But it's still. Yeah. I watched a film. I watched some tape or film on whoever. But it's better than saying I watched a digitalized version of the game they played a week ago.
Yeah. Well, when I first came in, Eric Kuntu, who is now the Detroit Lions video director, he left here, went out to Indy, and then from Indy went to Detroit. Like, I remember when it was on beta, right? Like, I actually have beta tapes. I don't even know how I would be able to watch them. From Dennis Goldman, he just gave me a box of stuff when I went down to Princeton, and he still lives down there. But it was a situation where I still had beta, and then it went to VHS, and then it went to DVD. And right as I was leaving Syracuse, there was that cusp of it being, okay, hey, we can digitize this. We don't know how it's going to happen, but, where it's going to go, but we can get some MP3 type, MP4 type thing established so you can watch them. So by the end of my career through the NFL, that's what it was, is you hand in your iPad, you get it uploaded. But, to see that start to finish from the beginning of my career, entering college into now, but it is. I mean, some of those things, like, the gridiron, right? Like, the gridiron used to be a grid, right? But we still call it the gridiron. And, with the establishment of the film and the nature of everybody saying, hey, I watch film, that's pretty cool to see.
And then also going back to beta, when I came out, the quality of beta was better than VHS. But VHS is the one that everybody ended up gravitating toward. But beta itself was a better quality product.
Yeah, it was. They were orange, right? So they must have gone and bought this thing, and spent the value pack and gotten all these orange things, and that segued into an orange VHS. But it was these orange betas. I didn't have the reels, right? Like I didn't have to go back that far where we had the projector, but there were some clips that I know Coach B and Coach D were really looking at the old reels and trying to have Eric Kuntu convert that over to some form or fashion of modernization.
As we get set for the noon kickoff against UConn earlier this week, we had one of Coach Mack's prized possessions at the time, prized quarterbacks, prized recruits, Don McPherson, who is a regular guest with us, and going back to the win at Cal, a couple of thoughts on some of the stats from the game that he found interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing that they did was not only did they start fast, and like you said, keep the crowd out of it, they had the ball for almost 38, 39 minutes of that ball game, well, almost a full quarter more than they had the football than Cal, which is a massive accomplishment when you throw the ball as much as SU does. They've been very good at holding on to the football as being a pass-first offense. So it was really impressive. Also, Fran has been doing this. Coach Fran has been doing this all year long. But 4 for 4 on fourth down. There's nothing more demoralizing to a defense when you stay on the field on fourth and medium, fourth and long, and to go for it 4 times and get those fourth downs. That's really demoralizing to the Cal defense.
Interesting stat there, but true, right? The fourth and whatever, and Coach Fran not shy.
Yeah, I mean, the time of possession, I agree with what Don McPherson was saying. It is one of those where when you throw the ball, you don't anticipate having that long time of possession, but the ability to complete the pass, keep the clock going, intertwine it with the run game, that is, top 10 program right now with the ability to hold on to the football. And then when you get to third down and you think you're going to get off the field, for somebody to just punch it in one more time, and really start to continue that drive as you think you have this emotion of like, hey, I'm getting off the field. That's what we did. We hold up, the fist for fourth down. We get the punt unit on. Well, no, that's not going to happen. And I think that the ability for the offense with Jeff Nixon and the analytics, or even lack of analytics in some capacity, of just the passion, be like, hey, my guys are going. We're going to go for it.
That is the voice of Adam Terry up on the quad, where probably in the next couple of minutes, the quad walk will get underway. And I know there's a few more people. I know it's kind of a misty start to the day here, but I'm hearing some background noise and sound like something's starting to happen up on the quad there.
Yeah, the band is starting to rev up on Hendricks Chapel steps, and you do. I mean, if there's any indication of what today is, it is going to be an extreme recruiting day. I mean, probably this is the most that I've ever seen walk by. You know, whether it's 100 recruits, if not more. There were definitely about 200, 250 people that were walking by. So we haven't forgot about the recruiting efforts, and all of those guys get to see Fran Brown and the rest of the staff, as well as guys that are being replaced. You know, this is senior day, so some of these guys that are going to be replaced are going to be replaced by these recruits that are lining the walkway at the end of the quad near Hendricks Chapel.
It is a noon kickoff inside the JMA Wireless Dome. We'll take a break here, and we'll be right back on the flagship station for SU Football, TK 99 and TK 105.
TK.
There they are. I can hear the band rocking there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just walked by.
Remember, there they are, being at Coach Mack's after one of the, and almost every game, he'd come back to his house, and like I said, there was a reception, but he was very good friends with the head coach of Michigan State at the time, and they called, I want to say he talked to him like every Saturday after both teams played, but I don't remember who would it have been in like 1986, 87, 88.
Was it Duffy Doherty?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe Duffy Doherty.
Because there was he at Syracuse at some point?
I don't know, as a coach, but he was here. His family was here. His sister was Jean Doherty, who was a local television personality. Back
so that might have been the connection.
Yeah.
I think it was Duffy Doherty. We probably Google that, but it's better off the top of your head, right?
Yep, it's better. George Pearls. I'm looking at somebody in the stream chat, and it said Duffy Doherty was earlier at Michigan State, so Coach was talking to George Pearls. Thank you, whoever put that in there. I knew it was right.
We
yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, and I kind of Googled real quick, but Duffy Doherty, well, you know, he's the guy that coined the phrase, getting a tie is like kissing your sister.
Yep.
And that was his sister, Jean Doherty, was locally on a show called The Magic Toy Shop. She was the play lady. So that's who he was talking about. The play lady.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
So so this is mid to late 80s, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so just coaching career. You know what? He was the line coach at Syracuse in 1940.
Okay.
And back again in 1976. Head coach of Michigan State 54 to 72.
Oh, I'm way before then. Okay.
Yeah, I would have had no idea there.
Huh. That's the only one that I thought had maybe some semblance of a Syracuse connection just as coaching, but yeah, I get it.
All right, well, we'll finish up here. There's probably about 7 or 8 minutes of chat, and then we'll hit the break, and then after that, we'll log off, and then I'll see you up in the dome later.
Sounds like a plan.
Will they have anything, the noon games, the press box meals have been pretty, scrambled eggs.
Rehydrated eggs.
Here we go.
unbeatable prices.
Well, that was one of the
Make
things is we were
unforgettable
talking with
memories
Cal.
now at
And, when we got
heritagehillbrewery.com.
Their guys come in, their play-by-play, their color guy comes in. We start
This
talking
is
about
TK99 and TK105, the flagship station of SU football.
And I was like, well, we'll be the judge of that, right? Like, we can go
It's
down
the
there.
TK Tavern on the Hill pregame tailgate broadcast. Live up from the World Headquarters here in Armour Square, and Adam Terry live from the Quad, where the Quad Walk has taken place, and the marching band is playing, and the fans are starting to show up and assemble. And now looking out the window here in Armory Square, it's just been kind of a steady mist, kind of drizzly thing. Not an outright downpour, but does not seem to be deterring the people who have showed up there to support the team.
Yeah, no, early Quad Walk, I think that's a success. They get off the bus and walk in front of Hendricks Chapel into the Dome. And now you're starting to see more people file in. I think a little bit early, this nooner game is a deterrent, but, people are starting to come in. They got their cup of Dunkin' and rocking and rolling from there.
Ready to go, and the game obviously against UConn. Earlier in the week, we talked to Coach Fran Brown and about what he sees. And again, I think I probably used the term game film as we were talking about before. But when he sees UConn, what's he looking at there? What does he see?
I'm looking at a good football team identical to us. These guys could do the same thing. I think they run the ball extremely well. They got a bunch of trick plays. Their defense does a lot up front. They do a lot of stunting and slanting and things of that nature. And they got a good secondary. They're two linebackers that are really good. They're solid tacklers. So we get an opportunity to go against just a good overall football team. We get to match up ourselves. This is a conference opponent in our opinion, in our mind. They play guys in the conference the same way we play guys in the conference, and we've all had the same outcome with scores, whether it was 1-1 or lose by 1. So we feel like this is a conference opponent.
Yeah, Coach Fran, looking at the game, and he said earlier, too, in the week that he had circled this game as what he called the most important game of the season because it's about character today. It's a game that you're a double-digit favorite, and it's at home, and this one will show kind of what you've learned during the season.
Yeah, you look at UConn and what they're capable of doing. Last year, 2022, they go up to BC, and they knock them off. They're capable of going in and upsetting people. And like Fran is talking about, you look at the games of Duke. Duke wins by 5. Wake Forest, they win by 3. What I want it to be in a situation like this is you want it to be like the first game of the season when they go down to Maryland, and Maryland hangs a 50-burger up on them, 50-7. And I think how they did it was they started to air the ball out and intermixed with some run game. I think that is the way that it needs to be. But Jim Moore Jr. being a NFL coach, now being there for 3 years, has that defensive coordinator mentality behind him. It's going to be, I harp on it all the time. It's going to be the guys up front. Can they stop the run? You look at what UConn has as an offense and an offensive line. They've got 3 guys that can rush. They've rushed over 500 yards. And they have the Joe Moore kind of nominee, which is the best offensive line in college football. So midway through the season, they were still on that list, and they've got the ability to run the football. And then defensively, that's what they're going to do is they're going to bring a more of a NFL style. How do you build it? It's going to be zone blitz, and when they do play man, they're going to be on top of it. So I think Fran is right on point with that, and everybody's looking forward to it. But when they blitz and they bring stuff, you can gash them, and you saw Maryland do that at the beginning of the season, and that's where I hope that Syracuse can continue that trend.
On that UConn offensive line, their center, a guy who had transferred out of Syracuse, now playing at UConn, back in the JMA Wireless Dome today. And for a guy like that, is that an added chip on the shoulder in a way, a little bit more motivation? And I don't remember, and guys leave for different reasons, obviously, so I don't remember the nature of why he transferred out and went, and just probably for playing time, etc. But does that add a little bit of motivation for a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, hands down. I think Wes Ho, you're referencing Wes, and he was number 73 for us here as well, and he got some playing time. He was on the 2 deep. He was a guy that traveled but also played fullback for us. So when it came to goal line short yardage, he lined up in the backfield, and that was his opportunity. I think, playing time came into the decision. He's a smaller guy than I think what they're trying to establish in this Dale Williams offensive line era. They want bigger guys that can ground and pound and lean on you later on in the game. And when you look at the capabilities of what UConn has, it is a little bit more zone. It is a little bit more movement. But, when a guy leaves, I think it's, in Wes's opportunity there is probably for the better because he's getting more playing time somewhere else. But, I think it's an addition to a UConn offensive line that, has been decent this year.
Last but not least, obviously, today, and we talked a little bit about earlier, one of the highlights of the day will be the addition of Coach Mack's name to the Ring of Honor. And I think, is that happening at the half? I'm pretty sure.
I would assume so. Yeah, usually that's, when they do some of the pomp and circumstance, I think to put Coach Mack up, it's probably going to be during the halftime. And, I think, bring the whole family out. Mackey works here, so I imagine Mackey's going to be out there, and Cam, his grandson. Those are the two knuckleheads that we used to watch when we were playing for Coach P. They would be wrestling each other and throwing the football at each other, and then every once in a while you'd hear a grunt or a groan out of Coach Mack to tell his grandchildren to stop. So.
Well, one of the many people obviously looking forward to that part of the game today, Don McPherson, who talked about that earlier this week with us.
It's going to be such a thrill to see Coach Mack's name up in the Ring of Honor, and I'm going to be thrilled just to be there and be with his kids, and of course his grandson Mackie and Cameron, who both had a chance to play at Syracuse. It's going to be a wonderful day. Coach Mack and his wife Sandra are buried right there on campus, and it's going to be a thrill just to see his name go up there and have him take one last bow in the dome.
Yep, should be a very emotional day for the Coach Mack family, and again, the well-deserved honor when that happens later on today.
Yeah, I mean, my sentiments exactly of what Don's saying. It's a fantastic opportunity. He's in the Hall of Fame for college football. And then, to see the people that he's produced and the pedigree that's come after him and the coaching tree that's been established after him. I mean, it's when you're a Hall of Fame coach and you win some football games around here, not just some, but quite a few, that is what comes along to you.
Adam, thanks. As always, we will see you in the Dome coming up a little bit later on as you continue your broadcast duties there live at the Quad. Always appreciate it. See you soon.
No problem, man.
See
you next week.
See you next week. And again, a noon kickoff. And keep it right here on the flagship station for SU football, TK99 and TK105. And go Orange.
TK. So total ripoff. Come down here. Great crowd here today. This has got to be... It's 9:52 in the morning. It's 9:52 in the morning. I'm staring at a packed bar. Like, packed. Tables packed. It is jammed in here. Welcome in Cuse Sports Talk, by the way. Hello. As we take you out of the TK tailgate on the Cuse Sports Talk side of things. But yeah, it's we are vibing in here on an early Saturday morning. So people in here, hyped up, Cuse gear, get you ready for Syracuse and Connecticut today. And a day in which Coach Mack is going into the Ring of Honor. So unfortunately, obviously, Mack will not be here to go into the Ring of Honor, but should be a great ceremony for his family at halftime today where his name gets unveiled. I don't know exactly the whole plans of it. I would imagine, if I had to take a guess on how these things go, that perhaps his grandsons, Cam and Mackie, will have a thing or two to say, both Syracuse lettermen and graduates in their own right. So that should be something to see at halftime. Well-earned, well-deserved for a guy like Coach Mack, who certainly made an indelible mark here in the Syracuse community, made an indelible mark on this building, like back when it was the Hotel Syracuse in the 80s. Like, if you knew what was what back in the day, you knew how to make your way back down to right around here, somewhere in this building after a Syracuse football game, and you might have had a chance to enjoy the first, sip the second, and refuse the third, or ignore Coach Mack's advice altogether, depending. But shout out to Sandra. She was the prime party organizer of football season in the 1980s in this neck of the woods. So the McPhersons got it done down around here on game days back in the day. So only fitting I'm sitting in here now on the day where Coach Mack is going into the Ring of Honor inside the Dome, a place where, he was the guy, along with Coach Boeheim, that came up, put it on the map, right? Big wins back in the day. Nebraska, 1984. The 1987 season set the table for all those great moments to come now in the last 44 years of the Carrier, now JMA Dome over the years. So Mac rightfully remembered. Roy Simmons Jr. as well. He went into the Ring of Honor a few years ago, obviously made hay in the Dome back in his day in the 80s into the 90s. So all three of those coaches from that early heyday of the Dome have been properly Ring of Honorized. Yeah, that's a word. We're going to go with it. Ring of Honorized back in the day. All right, what do we got coming up here over the course of our next hour or so with you at Shaughnessy's? Next hour, we'll hear from Kyle McCord. He is the quarterback. We'll hear from Fran Brown. He's the head coach. Lots else to talk about, too, as we get you set up for Cuse and UConn today in the Dome. It's senior day. It's the penultimate game of the regular season. We are a week out from Cuse and Miami in the Dome. Can't wait for that. We'll see if Syracuse can stack up win number 8 in the Dome before we start worrying about those Hurricanes. With that, we'll step aside for a few. Hour 2 of our pregame coverage when we come back after this. It's Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Chat. What is up? I don't know why you're talking about George Perlis and Duffy Daugherty, but because of Coach Mack, whenever I hear the name Duffy Daugherty, I immediately say Biggie Munn. It is required by law, I think. Hey, Paul, look at your phone. Oh, man, it is freaking packed here, though. It's kind of gross outside, gloomy and wet, but it is popping. It's not even 10 o'clock. It is popping in here. The overcastness does help with the glare behind me, though. What's up, Bowling Ball? I think I saw our guy Dom and family walk in here. I don't know where he went. There you go, Bowling Ball. No, Dom is here. Dom's watching from in the building. Oh, we're in a break. No, come over whenever. I'll shoo you away if I'm busy. What's up, Dom? What's up? Nice to see you. Hi, Brian. Nice to meet you. Absolutely.
This place is awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate all you guys.
Absolutely. Enjoy it. No, enjoy the day. That was dumb. We selfied it up. No, yeah. Yeah, what a collection. Will he be able to get Paulie? Man, it's popping here at Shaughnessy's today. This is we've had some great crowds here all season. You sometimes think a noon game, who would be at a bar at 9 in the morning? I'll tell you, Syracuse fans. That's who. As we're rapidly approaching 10. This is a fantastic crowd here as we look forward to hopefully a big crowd in the Dome today. I don't know if it's sold out. No, hopefully next week gets to a sellout number. It's not quite there yet. To my understanding, no full student section this week or next week because the games surround Thanksgiving break. So that kind of always stinks as far as implications on attendance and crowd and all that stuff, but does open up some primo seats for others to take advantage of. So plus minus on those things. So hopefully we get a good crowd today, and a sellout next week would be fantastic on Thanksgiving Saturday for Syracuse and Miami. But what do we got here today? You know, there's a lot of talk this week from a variety of angles. I think it was kind of kicked off by Stan Drayton, former Syracuse assistant, was relieved of his duties as Temple head coach after their, of all things, overtime win last week. But Stan has struggled 3 years in down there in Philly, which then led to some speculation. ESPN's Adam Rittenberg wrote an article that tossed out some names in there, including Jeff Nixon, the Syracuse offensive coordinator, is a guy that potentially makes sense for that job. Syracuse defensive coordinator Elijah Robinson could potentially make sense for that job, which then led to Fran Brown being asked about it on Monday in his press conference and addressing the idea. And to boil it down, the gist seemed this. Fran is all about his guys moving on to greener pastures. But you want to make sure they're greener pastures, both in opportunity and fiscally. He wants, stack them up. Stack up those them dollar bills, y'all. He wants his guys to get Power 4 jobs when they move along. Fran basically declined the Temple job on behalf of his two guys, saying he understood that they didn't want that job anyway. You never know how far those things go down the line, but will be very interesting to see, I think, if Fran and thus his assistant's success continues here over the next year, 2, 3, whatever, how sought after they will be for other jobs. And then conversely, and this is what Syracuse fans have a very good ability to worry about ceaselessly, if Fran will then be considered for other jobs, a.k.a. higher paying jobs, a.k.a. SEC or Big Ten jobs, which are, for the most part, higher paying jobs right now. We just saw Kurt Cignetti, first year head coach Indiana, getting set to coach the current game of the year in college football today. 5th ranked Indiana on the road at top 5 Ohio State in a big game in the Big Ten. Playoff implications, the whole deal. He is 10 games into his career at Indiana, and they already gave him an 8-year, $64 million contract extension. To my understanding, Syracuse doesn't have funding availability like that kicking around. I don't know what Fran's making. Private school, the whole deal. My best guess is four-ish. That's kind of what Dino was making. Kind of start with the previous guy left off and go from there. So you always wonder if somebody comes with an offer you can't refuse. Can a guy like Fran, who has said, I want to be in the Northeast, actively sought out the Syracuse job. You look at jobs in the Northeast other than Penn State, right? Like, what other job in the Northeast could you say is, like, clearly better than Syracuse? Like, Rutgers is in the Big Ten. They're Rutgers. Come on now. BC, Pitt. Like, all these jobs, not to poo-poo them, but to put them on a pedestal over Syracuse. Maryland, I find that silly. So we'll see how that goes going forward. Because Fran, this week, he called this a career job. What does that mean in this day and age? A career job a generation ago, it meant 20 years. It meant everything. To tie it back into the idea of Coach Mack going into the Ring of Honor. And this is where it gets interesting, right? Doug Marrone, dream job, 4 years, Syracuse, Buffalo Bills. Nobody liked that, the way that ended. Dick McPherson, 10 years, New England guy, great success, foundation for future success, left for the NFL. Didn't go so hot in his 2 years as head coach of the New England Patriots, as Coach Mack always liked to say. He got them Drew Bledsoe. Factually true. But still beloved, even though he left for elsewhere. Fran's got a shot. Dino had the shot, and it was trending that way until things fell apart down the stretch. Can anybody be a Coach Mack in this day and age? And what I mean by that is long enough tenured that it feels like this, you are part of the community. Fran is feeling like part of the community, but he left tomorrow. That'll go away real fast. Mac left, but a decade, and then he came back. And he was here every year. He was part of the community quite literally till the day he died. Fran Brown has an opportunity with his personality, with being out there, the picking up trash, the doing the stuff he has done, the focus he has put on it, that if he stays and if he has success, you got a shot to be that next guy and be beloved here for the rest of your time. Rings of honor, statues, all that. Again, 10 games in, you got to win. Dino had that chance too. Whose house? Our house. Close your eyes. Clemson. 10-win season. 3 years in, I think you would have had, and I said it at the time, there was a decent bet that Dino, if he could have pulled anything resembling that off for another 5, 6, 7 years, retire, he was going to be that guy. Quirky guy, movie references, weird stuff, whatever. All right, didn't work out. It's not easy to do that. Right? Like Coach P was here 14 years. Technically, he had all the success and more that Coach Mack had, but Coach P, was not a warm, cuddly, fuzzy kind of guy. Like, he was never going to be that guy, regardless of the success that he had around here. Fran Brown has a chance to be that guy if being that guy is possible in the modern age, in the age of NIL, in the age of the transfer portal, in the age of ungodly sums of money being tossed around all over the place at players. See Michigan getting $10 million of NIL ready for their incoming quarterback next year. You see coaches making $8, $9, $10, $11, $12 million a year. I mean, Fran has said he's here for the long haul. He said it. And so far, everything he has said, for the most part, he is backed up. That said, we are in the actions speak louder than words age. A lot of what Fran says, like Fran is, always be closing. Fran is always recruiting. Fran is recruiting at every second of the day. Recruits got to believe he's there. The fan base has got to believe he's there. If somebody comes at some point with an offer you can't refuse, the question is, does he refuse it? That said, I still think we're a little way away from something like that. I think back to how worried everyone was after 2018, where Dino went 10-3. Everyone thought he was gone, right? Where was he going? I forget the job. He's going to USC. He was going to SEC. He was going all over the place. Was he actually in the mix for any of those jobs in hindsight? I don't think so. Did he get a very nice contract extension out of Syracuse because of that? He absolutely did. So there's the balance from the university side as well. Remember the issues of the past and where it painted you into corners going forward and things that happened here. So, again, we're 10 games into the Fran Brown era. It's too early to have this conversation, but at the same time, is it ever too early to have this conversation? And then, as far as the staff, if a guy like Jeff Nixon, if a guy like Elijah Robinson, both potentially touted as future head coaching candidates at various schools or places down the line, if they are waiting it out for something better than Temple, which, well, recently has not been great, has been a jumping off point for better jobs. You look at Al Golden, you look at Matt Rule, you look at what they did through there over the years. Like, a lot of people left immediately for better jobs out of Temple. Like, it's been a great jumping off point. If Fran's saying, no, my guys are staying here and they're going to jump bigger, I think that'd be interesting to watch, because no one has left Syracuse by their own volition for a future head coaching job since Sean Lewis did when he went to Kent State and then had the odd stop at Colorado before now having a nice landing spot being the head coach at San Diego State. So I think it's all going to be fascinating to watch to see how that plays out in the future. And for Syracuse fans that are worried about, oh, we don't want to lose Fran. We don't want to lose these kids. That is a much better problem to have than the alternative. That's all I'll say. That's a much better problem to have than the alternative. Because if Syracuse has that problem, that means the lead up to the problem was a heck of a lot of fun for the rest of us, right? That means the lead up to the problem was a lot of wins, and let's ride it as long as we can. In modern college sports, it's no longer about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 year build. We talked about it with Coach Mack. We heard it earlier in the show. I talked about it with Don McPherson. Coach Mack's time at Syracuse didn't pop till year 7. Year 4 was the Nebraska win. Year 5 was the Cherry Bowl. Year 6 was another losing season. There wasn't a lot to hang your hat on in the first 6 years of Coach Mack, but it was a different age. You got the time, and it popped in year 7, and once it popped, it lasted for 15 years. It hasn't really popped. I mean, we've had moments, but we haven't had popped and then sustained success after that for a long time. Fran's had a nice first season. Has it popped? No, we haven't had a pop moment yet. Could a Miami game next week be a pop-ish kind of moment? It could be. It could be. But we'll see how it all plays out. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch here in the coming weeks and years. All right, with that, we'll take a break. We will hear from Fran Brown, part of that discuss coming up later this hour. Immediately next, check in with the Orange QB. That is Kyle McCord. That is next here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. I think Bowling Ball Fran said that at some point, but, you know. Yeah. Pardon me, ordering lunch. Man, it's packed here. Post game, no. Post game. They have to run some people over the equipment to get out of here later, Mike. I have to take some people out. I may have to run some people over the equipment case later. It is packed. Yeah, I might have to just. I may have to choose violence to escape. No, ready? All right, back here on the pregame show. Brian Higgins with you, getting you ready for Syracuse and UConn today. I'll say this: if Shaughnessy's attendance is in any way correlated to Dome attendance today, it's going to be a standing room only at the Dome. It is just jammed in here right now. This is great to see. Well, Kyle McCord joins me every week on the show, brought to you by our friends at Davidson Ford of Clay and Davidson Chevy of Rome. Also, don't miss what is at least our last scheduled Kyle McCord show of the season, coming up 11 o'clock this upcoming Tuesday, exclusively on Cuse Sports Talk, CuseSportsTalk.com, and live on the Cuse Sports Talk YouTube page. But this week when I caught up to Kyle, we started on the idea of bouncing back from the BC loss and how they've been able to bounce back from every loss so far this season.
Yeah, that was big. That was big, I think, to respond to that. I know that some people had their doubts about the game, but I was confident, and I think every single time that we've lost this year, we've responded well, and I think the guys really viewed it as a business trip, and went out west and obviously took care of business.
And did it in the most comprehensive way. It wasn't a blowout, but there's some stats like game control and stuff like that. It felt like you guys had almost full control of the game from the opening kickoff.
Yeah, no, I think obviously. Didn't quite put our foot down the way I wish we had. And I think, we had an opportunity to do that and, didn't fully capitalize on it. But still, I think, controlled the possession, I think, throughout pretty much the entire game, especially the first half. Defense did a good job of getting turnovers. And the offense, although, not every drive resulted in a touchdown, we put up points on pretty much every single drive. I think we only punted twice. So anytime you can do that on both sides of the ball on our special teams was great. I think that was the best special teams game we've had this year too. That's the recipe for success.
Shout out to Jackson Kennedy, right, man? You got to feel it's got to change your mindset right on some of these drives where you now feel confident sending out the field goal team.
Yeah, no, 100%. For him to just stay in it and stay with it the entire year when his number necessarily wasn't called, and then to come up big. And the past few weeks, especially last week, going 4 for 4, and some of those were long field goals. I think he had a few 40-plus yarders. That was big, and then I think just to cap the game off, getting the onside kick too on special teams was the cherry on top of it all.
Yeah, you had a 42. That was your second field goal. Then you had a 43. That was the one you guys got in the third quarter. And the good news is it does appear he's a Cornell transfer. It appears he has another year of eligibility. So that would be good news going forward. A problem solved, hopefully, for at least a year and a half here at this point. And yeah, I mean, it was consistent moving the ball all game, right? It didn't feel like there was any point where it's like, man, we don't have answers right now.
Yeah, no. That's what it felt like. And, even when, we didn't have, a great first or, second down play, I think we did a pretty good job on third down and obviously a really good job on fourth down too, continuing to convert the ball. And then I think, the defense playing so well allows you to be aggressive in those type of situations. And, obviously wish, you would have turned some of those field goals into touchdowns in the red zone, but, 3 points is never bad, especially early on in the game, going down on a drive and being able to score. So, I think it was just all around really good team effort.
Yeah, you scored on the first 6 drives of the game, so you'll take that field goal, and 3 touchdowns and a field goal to open up the second half to build at the time what was the largest lead of the game. And we got Kyle McCord here, brought to you by our friends at Davidson Ford and Davidson Chevy. His weekly visit with us, looking back at Cal, getting you ready for UConn. I don't know if something changed here going back to the pit game, but it feels like the balance that you guys have with how you're using LeQuint, how you're throwing the ball, it feels like the balance here the last month has been outstanding on offense.
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes to the O-line, being able to run the ball. I think it opens up the pass a lot more. It doesn't allow the D-line to kind of tee off and pass rush every single down. And then, the linebackers have to come up and respect the runs, and I think that's why we were able to hit some of those play-action shots down the field. Obviously we're going to, do drop back pass, and, that's a big part of our offense, but to be able to balance it up a little bit more and, use LeQuint because he's a weapon and get him going. I think he had over 100 yards. So, just having that mix, I think, makes everybody's job easier because it doesn't allow the defense to kind of, prepare for a pass and, kind of force us to be one-dimensional.
Yeah, and a lot's on you too, right? With the way you're reading an RPO situation. Does it change the way you evaluate that, knowing that the line is getting more push? You're like, all right, I maybe don't need as favorable a look to run the ball.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think when you have confidence that if you hand the ball off, you're going to get at least 4 yards. Even if they don't necessarily get a great push, LeQuint will make it right. Turn a 2-yard run into a 4-yard run. Like that's important. And, it makes, like you said, my job a little bit easier where, you have more confidence in the run and knowing that they're going to be able to move the ball. So, all around, I think, when we run the ball, everybody benefits.
Yeah, LeQuint, 23 carries for $109 and 2 touchdowns. He also still, he's doing what he does. 3 catches, 25 yards. Like that hasn't gone away from what he's doing.
Yeah, no, I think his stats this year, I think, are really underrated. I think he has over 1,000 all-purpose yards. I think he's over 700 on the ground and over 300 catching the ball. I don't think he's getting enough credit for the season that he's put together. But he's a weapon, and I think that if we're able to maximize what he does, both on the ground and catching the ball, it'll be a good day for the offense.
Yeah, what are we? He is currently 761 on the ground, so he's averaging 76 yards a game. It's a little bit behind his pace from last year running the ball, but then you look at what he's doing catching the ball for you guys. He is your 4th leading receiver, 393. He's almost at 400. So he's at really quickly closing on 1,200 scrimmage yards. He'll probably pass that before halftime this next week. To have a running back, he's got 50 catches.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of catches for a running back.
Yeah, he does a really good job in pass protection, and then he gets out in checkdowns too. Obviously, we've thrown him some screens, some bubbles, and stuff like that. You see what he does with the ball in his hands. The hurdle he had in the 4th quarter was disgusting. It's not. I don't even think the DB really went that low on him, to be honest.
No, that was a very high jump.
Yeah,
I don't know why he did. I don't know why the hurdle was the option, but it worked out.
Yeah. Having a guy like him in the backfield with me makes my job easier, and I think any way we can get him the ball, good things are going to happen.
Looking at the balance here, and you look at Trevor and Aronde and Jackson Meeks. If they keep up their averages, none of them are get to 1,000, but there's a really good shot that you're going to have like 3 900-yard receivers, add in one LeQuint's doing. That is incredibly balanced, right?
Yeah, I think they all do a really good job at, all their skill sets are different, but they all, I think, balance each other really well. I think that obviously Trev being in the slot, does his thing, and then Jackson on the outside is a good physical receiver, and then OG, you can kind of line them up wherever. It's going to be a mismatch. They all complement each other well. And so if a defense wants to take away Jackson, then, it's going to open up Treb. And then if, they want to go, heavy focus on the receivers, then OG is going to get a favorable matchup. So, whatever the defense, I think, tries to dictate, someone in that group benefits, and they all step up to the plate and make their plays.
Yeah, what am I counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys on the team with multiple touchdown catches too. Yeah. So that adds up real quick. I know your touchdown rate has slowed recently, but that's because LeQuint just keeps running the ball in the end zone. He's stealing your touchdown passes.
I know, man. I can't be mad at it. As long as the ball's getting in the end zone, I have no problem.
Yeah, it's not like it slowed you guys down from scoring. You're still averaging in the mid-30s as it's kind of been going at around all year. As we got our guy Kyle McCord getting you ready for UConn this week. It's technically senior day this week. I know Fran was concerned about travel Thanksgiving weekend, so wanted to do a week ahead. Are you doing the whole senior day stuff here this year?
I will be. Yep.
So how does that go? Do you know what the plan is, or what does Fran do anything special? I mean, it's his first year kind of getting to design all this stuff.
I think the parents of the seniors will be on the field pregame.
Okay.
And I think I'm not. I mean, obviously this is my first time doing it too, but I think you just go out and stand with your parents, take a picture, and then just keep it moving, and then game time. Whatever they have us do, I'm sure it'll be nice. But to be honest, I probably won't even know until right before the game.
Do you expect like emotions, or since it's not even your last game, do you think that won't hit you since you do have another dome game literally a week after that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think anytime you play football, like you just get so locked in on the game, and then anything that kind of happens outside of it, it's like not even. It's like you're doing it, but like in your mind, like you're just thinking about the game. So,
so you're going to ignore your mom and your dad while you're doing this. That's what I'm hearing. Like, Mom, what are you doing out here?
You said it, not me. But yeah.
Sorry, Mama McCord. Yeah. It's not intentional. We'll see you after the game.
She'll understand.
It'll be better after the game.
Yeah.
But that's what I find weird, because sometimes like some schools do it before the game, some schools do it after the game. Obviously, it's always awkward when you do it after the game, and if you've lost the game, that's always weird.
Good. Yeah, it's not good. So. We did it at Ohio State. We always did it before the game, but like my sophomore year, like senior day, was the game against Michigan.
Yeah,
and so it's like
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's like the biggest game of the year, and then like right before the game, it's like, okay, let's take a quick break to
get the bouquet of flowers.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think doing it before the game is obviously better for that reason. But listen. I think it's, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a weird, I mean, not a weird tradition, but it's like, it just doesn't go with the flow of football. Like, everything is so amped up, and then you want to take a moment right before the game to kind of, like you said, have, flowers and stuff like that.
Here's a framed jersey. Where do I put this?
Yeah, exactly.
we got a game to play.
Right. Yeah.
All right. It is UConn this week. This was one, that they really struggled last year. So the schedule comes out. You're like, all right, there's a gimme. They're not struggling this year. They got 7 wins. How much has that opened your eyes when you watch them on film here this week?
They're legit. They're a very legit team. And I think that in my eyes, like just watching them play, they look like an ACC team. They're being coached like an ACC team. They run a lot of good stuff on defense, and they've been winning games. And even in, their 3 losses, I think, obviously the Maryland game, the first game of the year, it's hard to kind of gauge where a team is week 1. And then they bounced back from that really well. They played Duke extremely tight, who's 7-3 in the ACC. And then they played Wake extremely tight as well. So in my eyes, it's just another conference game. And I'm excited because it'll be a good game.
Davidson Ford of Clay, Davidson Chevy of Rome. Again, don't miss out on the final scheduled Kyle McCord show of the season this upcoming Tuesday, live at 11 a.m. Get in the chat. You ask questions. I will read the questions to Kyle. Kyle will answer your questions live. Magic. And if you miss it, you can always watch the replay on our Cuse Sports Talk YouTube page as well. Been great chat with Kyle all season long. Maybe we'll get something going around the ball game. I don't know. We got to figure out. We don't know. We don't know what's going on with any of that yet. That is a question for another day. The quarterbacks matchup today. McCord up for the Orange. What UConn's doing? They got Nick Evers. They got Joe Fignano. Both have played. There have been injuries. They're both. I'd expect to see them both today. I don't know what the heck they're doing. Quarterback. They got 3 running backs that are all averaging about 50 yards a game. It's head on a swivel for who UConn's got on the field today. Head on a swivel for who they got on the field today. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll check in with the head coach, part of Fran Brown's visit with Orange Nation earlier this week. We'll hear from Fran after this. It's Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. All right. Oh, yeah, Ryan, I was saying my wedding reception was up there in the Persian Terrace moons ago. the second full year of the return of the hotel. Thankfully, still at first-year prices. Yeah, Devin, their 7 wins. Have they really beaten anybody? Not really, but it sneaks up in there. Yeah, I beat Steve to it there. We were here first. Take that, Steve. I think we were here maybe the year before, Steve and Kim, something like that. Thank God we got it at first-year prices. Don't know if I can afford that room anymore. And by me afford it, not me. Yes, me and Steve were very happy together, Devin. Yeah, it had opened the summer before, it reopened the summer of 16, which is when we booked the room, or we booked it the fall of 16, and then we were here July of 17. So yeah, it was new and fresh and all that stuff. Well, we just missed you then, right? That would have been July of 17. Thank goodness for the ESPN app and being able to watch on phones and all that stuff now, right? No, it's packed down here, Ryan. This is either the biggest or second biggest crowd inside of the year, I'd say, with the opener. This is a very large crowd. It's been kind of almost like this since 9:02. There was people sitting in the bar at 8:57. People ain't playing. Starting to clear out a little, I think, with people getting the shuttles. But yeah, it's busy. No, right? That would seem to make sense, right? I've heard they charge money for these beers. Yeah, that'll play, Devin. So I'm not afraid of the mobile YouTube TV app on my phone. That it is. Here we are. It jammed in here. What a crowd at Shaughnessy's here today. Say, if this is going to be proportional to the crowd in the Dome, then maybe a larger crowd than I was expecting here this Saturday for Cuse and UConn. This is it's got to be I'd say at least the second largest gathering we've had down here of the 6 that we've had this year. Crowd's been great really all season long. But it is hopping down here today. People excited about who? They're excited about some guy named Fran Brown. Fran Brown, who joins Stephen Pauly every week on Orange Nation. Normally Thursdays. This week it was Wednesday. Next week it'll be a Tuesday because of Thanksgiving. So normally Thursdays, but we're done. That's the last one until the bowl game. So we're kind of done with that. But Fran Brown joins Stephen Pauly on Orange Nation every Thursday. Lots to chat about. As always, here was their conversation from this week.
We've talked at times throughout the year about, slow starts by your team here and there. No such slow start on Saturday at Calamity. What allowed you guys to come? I mean, you were clicking on all cylinders, all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams. You built a 20-point lead by halftime. What kind of worked for that road trip out there to Cal?
I thought we were just locked in. We were together. We were able to go earlier, and everything was about us and just football. Getting to know each other more, hanging around each other more, because you just got to keep learning each other, keep being around each other. And we practiced our butts off as soon as we got off the plane. And then we just had meetings afterwards. We met the next day. It's just everything was business. And it was just us out there, and we knew that it was us versus them.
Along those lines, you're now 3-0 as a head coach coming off of a loss. What's allowed you and your staff to keep these young men from hanging their heads after a loss, avoiding a hangover in the next game? What's allowed you and your staff to be able to do that?
I think we just all compliment each other. I think we all feed off of each other. Have a great staff, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, who truly go back in and dive in. We kind of point the blame at ourselves. And I think when you point the blame at yourself, you're able to go clean everything up instead of trying to point in other ways. Everyone in the organization, the one thing I like to do is we call it go see the doctor. So you go find out what you did wrong, looking at Merrill, and just figure out everything you did wrong. If you can bring everything you did wrong to the table, then we can all start to change some of those things. And I think that helps us a lot, being able to do that way. And then us just being able to focus. The one goal I have is to not be beat by the same team twice. So got to move on.
Coach, you brought up how good your assistants are, and their names have come up in job searches. And there's a fear amongst this fan base, believe it or not, that, how do you prevent Syracuse from becoming a stepping stone school for even players and coaches?
Yeah, ain't no stepping stone. I don't really understand that. That's just how people look at it. So, we got to have guys stop saying what you just said and for people to look at it. Why would we be a stepping stone school where we're 7-3 right now? So when you look at being 7-3, go look at everyone else in the country. And then let's go look at the top 25, which we should be in, and different things of that nature. You have some teams in the top 25 that are 7-3. We have us continuing to push, and this is the first year of me coming into the program. So, stepping stone, why do you think that I'm trying to leave or something like that and go get another job? No, I think this is a career job. This is a job where people come because they've seen all the greatness, they've seen all the history that's in the program, and we finally have an opportunity to bring it back. If you just go back to starting off with probably the best running back of all time, Jim Brown, one of the best college running backs of all time, Ernie Davis. You get Floyd Little, you start talking about Donovan McNabb, Marvin Harrison, Dwight Freeney. All those guys, as you just start to bring those names up, Keith Bullock, there's a lot of guys that were really, really good that played at this school. That's Art Monk's Hall of Fame jacket behind me. I already brung up 3 other Hall of Famers. So I think it's just time that Syracuse is back where it belongs, where it was that old great one of the great head coaches who's going in the Ring of Honor this week with Coach Mack. So, we're trying to bring that back. So when you're getting that back, I don't think this is stepping stone no more. This is where you better come if you want to get your career started and you want to come and win. You should come here.
You brought up the top 25 there a moment ago, and I was telling Pauly before you came on that I was watching the college football playoff rankings being released last night on ESPN. They get through it, and then on social media there were national accounts, and not like local fans, like national analysts saying, how is, in particular Syracuse and Kansas State, how are they not in the top 25? How important is? Go ahead, Coach.
They just hating on us. But we gotta go win though. We gotta win in the games that we're supposed to win in. So I will put that But you got to look at some of the people that are in the top 25, and if it was the opposite teams in our conference that had that and done and beat a couple of top 25 teams and went in different ways, then I bet that we would be in there. If you had arguably the best quarterback in the country on that football team and they had the same record, then they would be there in that ranking. But we just allow, we're going to allow God to handle that. We got to go out and handle our business this week. We got a great opponent ahead of us, and really we focused on that. We don't really care. No one in our building talks about being ranked in the top 25. And I told you that before. There's only one number that matters, so we're not going to be number one. So we just got to keep working. We focus on that. But it would be cool for our fan base to have a top 25 ranking and to be able to finish in that. So we'll finish in that, and then the guys will be able to see everything else. It's all about the finish, It's all about us understanding and believing and knowing who we are and remembering what November is for. November is for contenders, and we have to make sure that we continue to show that.
You did tell us about the fact that, you don't play this game to be 22nd in the country or 27th or 31st or whatever the case may be. And, you also kind of downplayed the importance of 8 wins, which I totally get. Love the way you handled that the other day. I thought that the players, especially the returning players like the seniors, I thought 8 wins might mean something special to them. And I was telling this to Paulie before you came on. So, we asked Marlo Wax last night. We asked Derek McDonald. They've been here a while. The fact that this program hasn't won 8 regular season games just one time since 2001. It was in 2018. This would be the second time. And I thought that they would give an answer about, it meant something and it's a step in the right direction. And they both said the same thing. They're both like, honestly, we always knew we were winning 8 or more games this year. That was never even a question. So, when you say nobody in the building is doing this, to be ranked 22nd or, they don't care about the 8 wins, the goals are higher than that. I guess, can you just speak to how you're laying this foundation in this culture, and it seems like it's caught with the players in a short period of time. It seems like they get it, and you're not even a year in.
We believe in each other. We love each other. We care about each other. Everybody's bought in on Dark. Dark means everything to us. And that's where we are. That's what it's about. It's about each other. It's about the man next to me. It's about me being able to help him go and reach his dreams, goals, and aspirations. And everybody's doing that. Everybody believes in each other. Everybody's working for each other. And when somebody is not on their stuff and not doing it the right way, he's being called out. So we're starting to do those things that help us. We got a piece that we put together for our entire team about what November's about. And it's something that the way we're going to look at November when you will be in Syracuse, and this is going to go on for a long time. And it's something that we put together, and it's what November is about and who you have to be in November. So, it's a mindset though, right? It's a mindset. You don't want to be average, I finally know what my Uncle Charlie was talking about when I was younger, when I would get C's, and he'd be like, but why are you happy about that C when that other person in your class got an A? And you say that you're smarter than them. Why are you happy about that? So, our guys just know I don't want them to underachieve. Why would we be happy about being average? And we just got to continue to work. Now, at the end of the year, we'll talk and we'll sit down and I'll tell them everything that they should be thankful for, because I don't want them to just overlook anything that they've done or where they are. But we're on a mission right now. And when you're on a mission, you can't let those little small-minded pieces and those little things come and get you, because it knocks you off track. And I allowed that to happen to them. That's why we have 3 losses, because the coach got off track. Those guys were on a mission, and I don't want to do that for them again.
I brought up, Marlo Wax and Derek McDonald, Justin Barron's a senior, Kyle McCord, Fadil Diggs. It's going to be senior day inside the Dome Saturday against UConn, honoring the seniors a week earlier due to the Thanksgiving holiday. Can you speak to, I know you've only been here a year, but can you speak to what the senior class, both the transfers and the guys who are here, what they've meant during this transition year for you as you came in, in your first year as a head coach?
They made it easy for me. They're great young men. So they've made it easy for me. They've made it easy for the culture to be laid, for the foundation to be here, because they were bought in from the first meeting I had. like you seen those guys that were bought in, and then when I had individual meetings with every player, it made it so easy. So then when Fidel and Kyle and Deuce came back and just different guys, decided to do it, I remember Cinco and all, I'm like, yo, let's go win. So I was able to have all of those guys on the same page, and man, these guys just made it I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity of coaching them, because everything we've asked them to do as coaches, they've done it. They've worked. They go above and beyond. They care about each other. They bust their butts trying to be in class on time. Doing all the things that a lot of times coaches talk about, they do to the media so y'all can hear it. But they doing all the right things academically, in the community, just everywhere. And it's not like a front to put up just so somebody can tweet it. We're doing this all the time, and it's the way that we're living. And I'm just so thankful about that, because these men are going to go out and represent Syracuse like right in the world. They're going to represent this team right in the world. And it'll just be really, honestly, it's just a little chip off of what Coach Mack was doing. So it's just a little piece of that, and they get to go out and do that same thing. So the same way that Coach Mack built a foundation and had all those things here, and all these players are out successful in the world, people are out successful working in the world, and these guys are just doing the same thing, and I'm just trying to follow that same track. So that's why I'm so happy for them, because we finally get to be back on track where you got to look at Syracuse and you have to respect them again. So that's why I'm so thankful for the senior class.
When you look at senior day, it's going to be changing a lot nowadays with the transfer portal. How important is it for you to keep players, and so that in 4 years when senior day comes, they're actually kids that you watched grow from freshman to senior?
Our guys not going nowhere. Only way they'll leave if they become disgruntled. The relationship isn't right with them and myself, which that won't be the case. Or if they feel that this isn't the place for them to play, to go to their next goal, and then we'll sit down and talk about that together, and we'll agree on that. But I don't really see guys leaving from here unless they don't want to compete. You'll leave from here because you don't want to compete, but when it's like you trying to become a man, you want to get closer with your faith, you want to dominate the community, you want to dominate in the classroom, you want to win a lot of football games, why would you not come to Syracuse?
There is a weekly conversation with Fran Brown, as always, joins our nation, Orange Nation. He'll next be with Stephen Pauly Tuesday this upcoming week. A little different schedule with Thanksgiving Tuesday at 12:15 this upcoming week. And if you join us post-game, both on the radio side and on Cuse Sports Talk, we will have Fran Brown's full post-game press conference live for you, as always brought to you by our friends at William Mattar. With that, we'll take our last break in this hour, 15 minutes out from shipping you up to the quad. Stephen Fonte and Mike McAllister standing by there. Before that, we'll bring you back to Shaughnessy's for just a few more. I'll tell you the dream outcome for today's game, brought to you by Liverpool Pool and Spa. We'll do that after this here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. All right. What we feel about the game today, chat? Easy win? Randomly tight? What's the vibe? What are we feeling? Oh, better be, Poppy. Man, 8-3 Cuse, 10-1 Miami. That'd be a little bit of fun next week if we get that. That'd be just a little bit of fun, huh? I'd say there's actually no way, Devin, that we can make the ACC title game. It's impossible at this point. But what can you do? You know, Mark, I have not seen any. I've not even seen one. All Cuse folks that I've seen. Yeah, Clemson is done with their ACC games. They are 7-1 in the league, and that cannot change. SMU still hasn't lost. There's just no way to catch them. Like, they could catch Miami, but they can't catch either of the other two. Absolutely, Phil. Absolutely. Go in the next two. Go to the Gator Bowl or something cool. Go to the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is elite. Yeah, that's why I'm surprised. Actually, I'd say, like, in other games, you usually see a few opposing fans, especially, like, if you're coming from far enough away, you just stay here the night before. I don't see any unless there'll be either poor UConn fan attendance or they all just, drove in for the game today or something. Say Hartford to here is right at 4. No, all right. Yeah, I'd say 3.5. You're hammering it to get here, Texan Mark. I'd say that's a 4-hour drive going like 73, 74. It's 4-ish. Because it's about 3.5 from here to, 91? Is it 91? Then like another half hour south to Hartford. But yeah, I suppose if your accelerator down, assuming no speed traps, you could speed it up a little. We wouldn't recommend any illegal activities like that. That it is. Here we are. Brian Higgins with you. Last few minutes out at Shaughnessy's today. We'll get you outside up to the quad here in less than 10. Stephen Foddy, Mike McAllister standing by to take you the next hour up till kickoff. If you're listening and parking and maybe south or something, getting ready to take the shuttle down, you'll wander right past them. So stop by and say hi on your way into the Dome today. All right, time now for the dream outcome from Liverpool Pool and Spa. I'd say this is a dream outcome. The non-dream outcome, this is the outcome. Kyle McCord, 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. It just keeps happening. Kyle today, if he has a normal day, by the end of the day, last week he already got the single season completions record. If Kyle has a normal day today, by the end of the day, he will have Syracuse's single season yardage record and touchdowns record, breaking both Ryan Nassib's records from 2013. This is game 11. Nassib's records included the bowl game that year, pinstripe against West Virginia. So that tells you the kind of passing season that McCord has had this year. Literally, we have never seen anything like this before in a Syracuse uniform. I think we're getting another LaQuinn Allen day. Like, he's the guy now. Maybe Easton Willis gets, back from injury last week. Maybe he gets a few carries mixed in today, but I think we get another 100-yard day from LaQuinn. I think he finds the end zone a couple of times today. He's rolling right now. Offensive line run blocking is improving. those mesh together, I think another big LaQuint Allen game today. UConn's going to run the ball, though. They average right on 200 yards rushing per game as a team. They have not one. They have not two. They have not three running backs that are averaging more than 50 yards a game that have, as a collective, more than 500 yards on the season. Who's it going to be? I don't know. It's probably going to be all of them today. I think those three combined for 225 on the ground. We know Syracuse's run defense has been susceptible. That is what UConn does. That combo is not necessarily ideal if you're Syracuse today. What is, though, is UConn's quarterback situation. It ain't great. Nick Evers has played. Joe Fagnano has played. I'd say more likely than not, both will play today. They both played in almost all of the games this season. Syracuse's defense, though, is becoming more and more optimistic as the season has gone along. We saw last week at Cal. First two drives of the games for Cal ended out interceptions. Not saying it's going to be the first two drives of the game. I think Syracuse gets a couple of picks today off maybe one each, Evers and Fagnano. Add it all together, roll it all up. I think you got a big day coming for Syracuse. Epic blowout, a stomping, no. Comfortable win, yes. I'm looking at a final score today of Syracuse 38, UConn 24. Get them by a couple touchdowns. Spread today is a little bit north of 10. Syracuse covers in this one and sets up, assuming Miami can handle business today against Wake Forest. Syracuse at 8-3 against a 10-1 Miami team next week, who will need the win to make the ACC title game. So stakes on the line. Cuse and Miami, first game in the Dome in 22 years between the two. This week is key to setting up all of that fun stuff next week in the Dome. And that is our dream outcome today, brought to you by Liverpool Pool and Spa. Don't just dream it, live it with Liverpool Pool and Spa. All right, a reminder of what's upcoming later today. We're a little bit more than an hour away from kickoff. ACC Network is your spot for television today. As always, TK99 and ESPN 1200 on the AM dial is your spot for the game on the radio with Matt Park, Adam Terry, and Tim Leonard. I'll be back with you post-game right here on the radio, ESPN 97.7 in the Cuse, and of course on Cuse Sports Talk, the Twitch, and the YouTube after the game. We'll take your calls. Full Fran Brown post-game press conference live for you as well. But right now we'll step aside for a few. When we come back, it is up to the quad. That's where Stephen Fonte and Mike McAllister are standing by to take you the next hour to kick off here today. Glad to have you on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Wednesday, the Orange return home to face the Big Red of Cornell.
Bell bounce pass left lane, back to the basket. Freeman hooks the pass right sideline. Lampkin in his shot pocket. Three balls good. How's that for versatility? Eddie Lampkin, biggest player on the floor, knocks down a three. Cross-court pass, J.J. Starling back of the line. Quick release for three. Book it. Great shot. J.J. Starling off the cross-court find by Chris Bell.
Catch SU Hoops on TK99 and ESPN AM 1200.
Hello, Syracuse. Dave Anthony here for Romano Mazda, where it's SUV season. We are ready with a fantastic selection of pre-owned Mazda CX-5s. Here's just one example of many. Get a pre-owned 2021 Mazda CX-5 Touring Preferred with all-wheel drive, a sunroof, and miles in the 20s for just $22,900. And the JD Power value is over $25,000. So you're saving over $2,000 here at Romano Mazda. You'll love SkyActiv technology, giving you more power while using less fuel. 29 miles per gallon on the Mazda CX-5, and on top of the sunroof, you get other goodies like alloys, blind spot monitoring, and all the power gear. As a Mazda certified pre-owned vehicle, you get a 48-month or 48,000-mile warranty on top of a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Hurry, get your Mazda CX-5 Touring Preferred, just $22,900. The Season to Move You event. Stock number 5673P, Romano Mazda, Erie Boulevard East in Syracuse. Shop 24/7 at RomanoMazda.com.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
If you're 19 or older with certain underlying medical conditions such as asthma or diabetes, you can get vaccinated against pneumococcal pneumonia, a potentially serious bacterial lung disease that can disrupt your life for weeks. If you're 65 or older, it is also recommended you get vaccinated against pneumococcal pneumonia. No matter the season, talk to your doctor about vaccination today and learn more at lung.org/protect yourself. A message from the American Lung Association in collaboration with Pfizer.
Furnished by the American Lung Association.
Do you have questions about Medicare's upcoming annual enrollment period? One Group can help. Backed by years of experience, our Medicare insurance advisors are here to guide you through your coverage options and plan changes for 2025.
Visit onegroup.com or call One Group today at 315-457-1830. That's 457-1830. When you think Medicare, think One Group.
We do not offer every plan in your area. Any information we do provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options.
Make an impact in your community with Meals on Wheels of Syracuse. We urgently need volunteers to deliver life-saving meals and share a moment of connection with homebound seniors. Just a few hours of your time each week can combat hunger and loneliness for those in need. Step up today. Your neighbors are counting on you. Visit meals.org now to sign up. Your kindness can change a life.
Need to finish 10
Together, we can deliver.
That'd be nice.
WTLA North Syracuse, WSGO Oswego, W249BC Mattydale, W261AC Oswego, WTKWHD2 Bridgeport, ESPN Radio. Live from the Quad on the SU campus. This is the RomanoCars.com pregame show.
Good morning, everyone. Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister, not on the Quad today. We're inside the Galaxy Studios in Armory Square, taking your calls. If you'd like to check in at 315-437-7644. It's a pair of 7-3 teams inside the JMA Wireless Dome today, Syracuse and UConn. As we get you set for kickoff. And again, I just want to start with this, Mike, before people call us soft for not being out there. It was not our decision. We're doing
I wanted to be there.
So did I. We were just doing as we were told because of the weather, the shaky weather forecast, the wet weather. The equipment does not do well with rain.
No.
And so we were
Jordan on that.
We were told to come back. Yes, it was not on us. So before you call us soft, it was not on us. Just wanted to get that out there.
No, for the Virginia Tech game, we were out there on the
That's
quad
right.
in the actual.
We
it was
were
raining, and we even made John Wildak stand in the rain. So don't call us soft. We made the AD.
We did the whole first half of the show without coats on because we had John Wildhack there. Yeah, good point. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, so there is some concern. I don't know how much concern, but that's why I'm going to ask you the question. It has been brought up during the week that this has the potential to be a trap game with Miami next and coming off the big win over Cal, and it's quote-unquote just UConn in town today. What are your thoughts? Is there any concern that this might turn into a trap game?
Well, I mean, I certainly think there's it's reasonable to think that. But I think the fact that UConn is 7-3 helps. If they were 5-5, then maybe it's a little bit different. If they were 4-6, something like that. So the fact that they're 7-3, they have a good record. They've played 2 ACC teams this season. Both of them were close games, even if they're teams that you think Syracuse is better than. And so those are all things that Syracuse can use to try to make sure that the players don't approach it as just UConn. The other thing is, I don't think they've done that with any team so far this season. Even the Holy Cross game, I didn't come away thinking that they thought, well, we can just walk out and play and win. So I think Fran Brown's approach and culture would prevent that as well. And the fact that it's senior day. If you're a senior and you can't get pumped up to play on senior day, and if you're one of the teammates of the seniors and you can't get pumped up to try to honor them, that speaks to a larger issue. So I don't think that's going to be an issue today. If UConn ends up playing well and makes this game competitive, I think it's more so because UConn does some things that could give Syracuse trouble, and they're coming off a bye, which we know has been a problem for Syracuse this season.
That has been a problem for Syracuse this season. And you're right. There are a lot of reasons for them to get up for this game. It's senior day. Coach Mack being honored at halftime. I don't know how much the players are, fully up to date on what Coach Mack brought to this program, but we know that Fran Brown is. Fran Brown talked about Coach Mack the day he was hired in his introductory press conference. He talked about Coach Mack. You look at the fact that they have a chance to pick up an 8th win and get to 8 wins in the regular season for just the second time since 2001. That's significant. You have to figure with a win, there's a really good chance that they are ranked next week, which would be a very big thing. And of course, Miami coming to the Dome next week with a lot on the line. So take care of business today. There are a lot of reasons for them to get up, and we'll talk more about those reasons and get more in depth into that as the show moves along. I do want to go back to last week, and you said that Syracuse has done a nice job, getting up for each opponent. And I think if there was going to be the possibility of a letdown, it might have been last week, coming off that BC game where it was a disaster, could not stop the run, and now your dreams of sneaking your way into the ACC title game completely off the table. You had to fly across the country. Cal was better than I think we all expected coming into the year. They have a really good defense, and Syracuse comes out and plays its best half of football the entire season. That first half where they scored on every possession, they turned Cal over twice, they led 27-7 at the break. Slow starts have been an issue. It was not last week. They came out, they started fast. What do you think what can you attribute, I guess, that performance to a week ago against Cal?
They've bounced back every time they've had adversity all season, really. You think about the Stanford game. They played, I think, its worst game of football all season against Stanford, which outside of the FCS opponent, Holy Cross, might have been the worst team Syracuse has played this season. And that's a game that if they're playing like they did last week, I think they win by 3-4 touchdowns against that Stanford team. They just played terrible. Then they bounce back from that and they win 3 games in a row, including 2 on the road. They got blown out, absolutely decimated at Pittsburgh in just an awful half of football with all the pick sixes, and we know how that went. Then the next week they get down. Virginia Tech is kind of controlling them, even though Virginia Tech has its backup quarterback and backup running back in. And Syracuse bounces back and puts together a fantastic second half and memorable comeback. Then the Boston College game, as you just mentioned, they bounce back and play well at Cal in a convincing win. So the way that Fran Brown has built this program and has instilled his culture, the Dart mantra, all of that, I think that's why they're able to bounce back, because I don't know in years past if that would have happened. It seems like when things started to go wrong, it snowballed and derailed real quickly, and he's certainly done a good job at preventing that.
I think that win was really important because he's talked about November. If they lose that game last week, all the lip service about it's different now and November's for contenders, that goes out the window, right? If they lose that game, it's going to be everybody's going to roll their eyes and here we go again and great start and things are fizzling now. And they stopped that. They nipped that in the bud. They went out and they played a really sharp first half and a good game in general. I mean, that game was essentially over by halftime. It got a little closer than maybe it should have in the second half, but just a really good win to go on the road. Couple of things from that game. Kyle McCord was great, and, Gadsden and, Marlo Wax, and a lot of the usual suspects had good games. How about Jackson Kennedy, who has come in here and 4 for 4 last week on field goals, waited his turn. He was, really the third kicker on the depth chart when this season started. And, Brady Dendenberg had his issues and Jaden Noe had his issues. And so Jackson Kennedy was just kind of waiting his turn, got an opportunity in practice, show what he could do. They gave him an opportunity in the game. He's just not missing. He's making everything every time they trot him out there, he's making it. What can you say about the importance of having a reliable kicker? It sounds simple, but Syracuse didn't have it early in the year, and now you feel comfortable anytime he runs out there.
If he doesn't make the 2 field goals in the second half, they might not have won the game.
Right.
That kind of kept it, at arm's length a little bit, so that Cal never really felt like Cal thought they were actually in the game. And part of it was because they were able to convert on those field goals. But the biggest, I think, feather in his cap that you can give is you don't talk about it really much anymore, right? I mean, Syracuse wins that game, and I think in weeks past, one of the main storylines would have been like, oh my gosh, they were 4 for 4 on field goals, and it really wasn't even discussed. And I think that tells you what he's brought to that position. You feel like extra points, you can go back to kind of assuming they're automatic now, right? And short field goals, you feel like there's a very high percentage chance he's going to make those. Even when you start getting 40 and beyond, you feel like he's got a good chance to make those. It completely changes the way you call things offensively. You don't feel like you have to go for every 4th down situation when you get inside the 30-yard line, and it allows you to keep putting points on the board when you've got a lead. So it's all so important for Syracuse.
You brought up fourth down situations. That was another thing I wanted to bring up from last week. Fran Brown went for it 4 times. They converted 4 times. They're converting about 70% of their fourth downs on the season, top 15 in the country. And among Power 5 schools, I think they're 4th or 5th among Power 5 schools in terms of the amount that they're going for it and the amount that they're converting. What stands out to you, I guess, about the aggression that we've seen out of Fran Brown this year? Because he says, yes, he relies on the analytics, but he also relies on his gut, and he kind of marries the two together. And we've seen him go for it more than I think we've seen with coaches past. Like Dino promised when he first got here, not to compare the two, but it's a natural comparison. Sure. He promised us when he got here that he was going to go for it more than we've ever seen, and don't be surprised if they go for it on a regular basis in their own territory around midfield. And in like the initial, like his first year, he did that a lot, and then he kind of like gradually kind of moved away from that. So I don't know if it's Fran Brown's first year or is this who he is?
I think it's who he is because he's always kind of been that aggressive type of coach, even when he's been an assistant, to the point where, there was a story. I spoke to someone when I was at Sports Illustrated when Fran Brown came over, and when someone who covers Georgia for Sports Illustrated, and he said when Fran Brown got there before his first game as a defensive backs coach, he was watching film. Their opening opponent was Oregon, huge, obviously, opening game, and he went into Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, two big-time defensive coaches, elite coaches. Obviously, you would assume big egos, think very highly of themselves, etc. He goes into a room with them and says, guys, I think we need to change our defensive game plan because I've noticed XYZ on film. And they did, and I think Oregon scored 6 points. Wow. And they averaged like 50 points a game for the rest of the season. And so to have the confidence to go in and talk to those types of, that tells you who he is. This is who he is. But the other side of that is he's not erratic with when he's aggressive. It seems to be we're 4th and 3. We're at inside their 30-yard line. We've scored touchdowns the last 2 possessions. We score another one here. This could almost put the game away. I think we've got good situational play calls for this, so let's go for it. As opposed to it's 4th down. We should have converted that 3rd down, so just go for it. He's very methodical and planned with his aggression.
Not to use a Bills example, but I'm going to use a Bills example because I follow them, and last week I thought was a good example of that with the Bills, where it's 4th and 2. They have a chance to put the game away if they convert it, or they could kick a field goal and give Patrick Mahomes 2+ minutes to go down and potentially win the game with a touchdown. And Sean McDermott said that they talked about it earlier in the week, that if they were in that kind of situation, that they were going to go for it. They didn't want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball in the final 2 minutes with a chance to win the game. And so it was a gutsy call there, because if you don't make it, it was 4th and 2 for the Bills. You probably remember the play at the 26, the Josh Allen touchdown run. 4th and 2 at the 26. If you don't convert it, a field goal, you lose with a field goal. You do convert it, and we saw what happened. They scored a touchdown, and they put the game away. So, I look at it similarly with Fran Brown, to your point, that it's not just a knee-jerk emotional reaction to go for it. These are things that he has thought about. These are things that they've talked about earlier in the week. And so when they get in those situations, it's like, all right, we've rehearsed this, we've practiced this. Of course, we're going for it here, and this is the play that we're going to use. And I think that says, like, that's comforting, I think, as a coach, to know going in what you're going to do. And I would have to imagine it's comforting for the players to know, what the deal is in those types of situations, to expect to go for it and to expect to convert. And again, they're converting 70% of their 4th downs.
Yeah, and it's showing confidence on 2 fronts. One, it's showing confidence that your offense can convert it, but also confidence that if you don't, your defense is going to be able to get a stop.
Right.
And so it sends confidence throughout the entire team. It's not, you said it's not an emotional reaction. I'll kind of compare it to the best thing I've got, which is when I'm playing college football video game. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
I get sacked on 3rd and 5 at my own 20-yard line. I now have a 4th and 12. You should never go for that, right? Especially when you're up by 3 touchdowns. And I'm like, screw this, I'm going for it. Right? So he doesn't do stuff like that, right? He's not getting, that's an emotional reaction to the situation. And it tells you, I think, a lot also about the preparation that they go through throughout the week, that what they're doing to prepare the players for those situations, but they're also preparing themselves for that situations, because there's not like a hesitation. It's not like they're sitting there and they're waiting and the play clock gets down to 5 and they have to call a timeout and then discuss, say, okay, now let's go for it. He knows immediately, let's go. And that tells you that going into every drive, every series, they're understanding time, place, etc., and what the plan is.
All right, we're about 45 minutes away from kick. We're going to take our first time out here at Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister getting you set for Syracuse and UConn. We are back after this on ESPN Radio.
Catch head coach.
What? Why didn't I talk about you playing it? Because I'm talking about me playing it. I know, you always go for fourth down. Doesn't matter where you are.
Apologies on the music.
Oh, it's okay.
Being able to hear it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's okay.
I know, so do I. I love the recruiting part of that game. That's my favorite part.
The music was blaring at the top of the show, and Mike wasn't paying attention, so I was like, trying to wave it down. Then he thought he wanted me. I wanted him to turn my mic down, but I was like, no, the music. Yes, Big Poppy, that I knew that some of you would roll your eyes when I brought up the Bills, but I did it anyway because it was the best example I could think of
Josh
on the
Allen
spot.
is my favorite player, even though I'm not a Bills
Is he?
fan, but he is, yes.
Man, that was awesome.
That was fun. He was not happy, but
who's your team?
He's an Eagles fan like I am, but he's got some people on his bus that are Bills fans that are obnoxious.
Yeah.
Gets it for that.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, San Diego. I think Caleb Singleton is. Everything looks very strongly pointing towards Syracuse. Caleb Singleton's depending on what service you look at, 4-star, 3-star cornerback prospect, was committed to Rutgers, decommitted. Florida was considered the favorite when he decommitted. A bunch of people put in crystal ball predictions or whatever else, but Florida found out he was coming up visiting here and that he actually was favoring Syracuse over them because of Fran. And Florida then told their writers 2 days ago, I think, he's not a take for us anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because they knew he wasn't coming there.
Yeah.
That type of stuff happened.
Interesting.
Rutgers was, after he decommitted from there, was going hard after him, trying to get him to recommit and, come visit again and all that type of stuff. And then they, again, found out he's coming up here to visit. Syracuse probably the favorite. And so they told their writers.
Yeah.
He decommitted because we're not taking him. Okay. Because Rutgers is passing on 4-star corners from Florida.
Yeah, right.
Florida can at least, we've got 75 4- and 5-star prospects on our board, so we're fine.
Big Poppy,
Rutgers,
I appreciate that. Go Bills. Go Bills.
Ben, there's a guy in the chat that's asking what your score prediction is today. Yes. Come talk. Real quick. Come tell him. Talking to the mic.
34-14.
Oh, I like it.
UConn?
Yeah, I'm not sure I could come up with any positive Jets or Giants examples, Phil.
You might have to go back in time a little bit
Yeah,
for some
right.
of those.
Yeah.
Positive Giants example. They let Saquon come to Philly.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. The guy in the chat says his score prediction's 35-17, so pretty close. Pretty close. How many sacks today from Syracuse or from UConn? Grandpa says 35-21 Syracuse. 36-21 Syracuse, I should say. Yeah, I don't know. How many sacks is Syracuse going to get? See, I think UConn's going to run the ball a lot, so they might not actually get that many. 10 sacks? Yeah, no. 5? I'm going to say 2. Yeah, because I think UConn's going to run the ball a ton. Texan Mark says 4. I'm predicting 2. Ben is predicting 5.
Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you on the pregame show. We're about 45 minutes away from kick between Syracuse and UConn, a pair of 7-3 teams going at it. Not all 7-3 teams are created equally, though, Mike. And you laid this out in the first segment that, they're 3 losses. UConn's 3 losses, all to Power 4 opponents. They got blown out by Maryland in the opener. They played Duke and Wake Forest close. And outside of that, they've beaten everybody else, but in a way, they've kind of beaten no one, right? I mean, you look at their schedule. They've beaten the likes of Merrimack, Florida Atlantic, Buffalo, Temple, Rice, Georgia State, UAB. Not exactly
2-8 teams.
Yeah, not exactly a murderer's row. What do we make of this UConn team?
Well, I actually think their most impressive performance of the season was actually a loss. It was when they only lost by 5 at Duke, because Duke is 7-3. They're not a great team by any means. I don't think they're as good as Syracuse is, but they're a solid ACC team at worst. Getting blown out by Maryland, who's 4-6, losing a close game to Wake Forest, who isn't any good. Those don't tell you much, and then beating 2-8 teams by 7 and 8 points doesn't tell you much. But when you start looking into what UConn is, they're a very good running football team. They've got over 2,000 rushing yards on the season, averaging 5 yards a carry, 19 rushing touchdowns. But they struggle throwing the football. They don't really know who their quarterback is. They kind of play 2 guys. One is more of a runner. One is more of a pocket passer. They kind of rotate them in and out. They're not a great passing team. And then they're kind of solid defensively, right? Like they kind of rank in the 40s and 50s in most defensive metrics. But they're also going against, as we mentioned, a lot of 2-8 teams. UAB is 2-8 and ran for 170 yards last week on UConn. So I think this is a game where if Syracuse doesn't play well, UConn is certainly capable of beating them. I think they're going to try to control the line of scrimmage and control the time possession, keep Syracuse off the field offensively. But defensively, I think they're a team that Syracuse can take advantage of running the football and through the air.
UConn, as you mentioned, does like to run the football. They are 21st in the country in rushing offense. They've got 3 running backs, all with more than 500 rushing yards on the season. All 3 guys are averaging better than 5 yards per carry. And again, keep in mind the opponents they're playing to some degree. But it's a team that they want to play solid defense. They want to run the football. They want to control the clock. They do not want to get into a track meet today with Syracuse. And I think that is the game plan. And, simply put, that might be what this game comes down to, whether or not it's close. Does UConn have success running the football early in this game? Because if they're able to shorten the first half and limit possessions and keep it relatively low scoring, then, they may hang around for a while. If they're, 3 and out on a couple of possessions, Syracuse might get out to an early lead and it might be, lights out from there.
Yeah, because if you do get out to a 2 or 3 score lead and UConn feels like it's got to start throwing the ball more than it wants to.
Yeah, then it's over.
Yeah, that's a situation where, it's UConn's not built to come back from those type of games. Whereas if, let's say something weird happens, right? Like UConn gets the ball to start the game, they kind of go down and score a touchdown. And then Syracuse fumbles the kickoff and UConn scores again. It's 14-0, like middle to the end of the first quarter. Syracuse has enough firepower they can come back from that without much. They've done that this year. But UConn is not built to do that. So they really need to keep this game close, low scoring, ball control, and keep Syracuse's offense off the field.
UConn's in a situation, we talk about all the reasons that Syracuse has to win today. UConn's in a situation where they kind of need a signature win over a good program, right? And, given this current landscape of college football, we don't know what the next wave of conference realignment that's coming, and they want to be a part of it, though, right? When all the dust settles, however it goes, if it ends up going to 2 super conferences or 48 teams that play major Division I college football, whatever it is, UConn wants to be a part of it, and they need to get good and fast and have some signature wins. Now, this isn't like beating Georgia today, but if they're able to beat a Syracuse, that would be the next step toward, hey, look at us, we belong in one of these conferences, maybe the ACC someday.
Yeah, and let's face it, Syracuse is right on the cusp of being ranked. I think they're 4th in others receiving votes in both polls, which puts them 29th in the country, right? So, yeah, UConn, if they want to point to, look, this 7-3 season that we're having so far isn't a fluke. We're actually legitimately good. Winning a road game against a power conference team like Syracuse furthers that. Now we're 8-3 with a road win at an ACC team. And, oh, by the way, we feel like we should have beaten 2 other ACC teams in Duke and Wake Forest. So, yeah, it's a huge game for them from that perspective. And honestly, even being competitive in this game, because UConn does bring other things to the table in other sports, as we know. Their basketball program's pretty good.
Men's and women's
basketball program's pretty good.
Yeah.
So there's certainly things that are attractive about them, and being able to put your football program kind of in that same foot certainly would help its attractiveness overall.
Now, getting back to why this game is so important for Syracuse, we know that Miami is next, and we know that they're going to be an underdog and maybe a sizable underdog next week. We'll have to see how that plays itself out and how things work themselves out today. But as we've said, if they beat UConn today, there is a good chance they will be ranked. There's a good chance they'll be included in the college football playoff poll. And I know that when the rankings came out this past Tuesday, there were a lot of people upset that Kansas State and Syracuse did not make the list. And UNLV was in the top 25. Syracuse went out there, beat them, and Syracuse was left off. I think there's a good chance they're in the top 25 if they win this game. Even if they were to lose next week, Mike, and fall right back out of the top 25, how important is it in year one for Fran Brown in this program to at least dip their toe in the top 25 and get on that list this week? Even, as I said, even if they don't end up there, it is significant, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. And even if, let's go with your scenario, right, where Syracuse ends up ranked after winning today. Let's assume they win today. They get into the top 25 poll, maybe they're 23rd, 24th, whatever it is. And then they lose to Miami, but it's a competitive game. Sure, you're probably going to drop out of the polls, but then depending on how things go with other teams and how the bowl game plays out, you still could end up ranked by the time the season is over. So that's still on the table. But yeah, just getting into the polls, winning 8 regular season games, it feels like those are steps forward for a program that's kind of been hovering between, 4-8 and 7-5 for the last several years.
It is senior day in the Dome, as we said. Normally it's the last home game, but because of the Thanksgiving holiday, the university thought, it's tough for families and travel and whatnot, so we're going to, make it a week earlier, and they're going to do it today. Can you speak to this senior class and what they've meant, and not so much the transfers who have come in like Kyle McCord and Fadil Diggs, and I know that they're going to be honored as well, and they're a big part of this team. Don't get me wrong, but the nucleus that was here, the Marlo Waxes, the Justin Barons, those guys, Derek McDonald's been here for 4 years. I know he's got a year of eligibility left, but those kinds of guys, what have they meant to the program? And I guess them sticking around, what has that meant to Fran Brown here in year one?
It allowed everyone to buy in immediately, because those are guys that are known quantities within the fan base. They are leaders. They're good football players as well. And so when you stick around through a coaching transition and you decide you're going to come back, not only from transferring elsewhere, but also potentially going pro, a guy like Marlo Wax, I don't know how high he would have been drafted, but I think he certainly would have been looked at as potentially being drafted. And the fact that those guys say, you know what, I want to come back and play for Fran Brown. It allowed for people to get excited about this season when it was, upcoming at that point, and allowed people within the fan base to buy into what Fran Brown was preaching right away, because those are guys that you had confidence in as far as what they could do on the field. None of them had any off-the-field issues, felt really good about who those people are, and they are assuming that this, with Fran Brown, goes the way I think we all think it has the potential to, if it gets so that Syracuse is consistently winning 8+ games most years, then you're going to look at those guys coming back and playing for Fran Brown as setting the foundation for everything else that happened.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, we may look back, and I said this to Paulie the other day, and we'll get more into Kyle McCord in the next segment, but I said this to Paulie the other day, the fact that Kyle McCord came here, he may be looked upon as the most important recruit that Fran Brown, we may look back 10 years from now and say, Kyle McCord kind of set the stage for all this. And again, those seniors that came back, not to diminish, their contributions to this. This was a really important year because there was so much excitement going in, and the way the schedule laid out and the talent that Fran Brown brought in, it almost felt like they had to surpass the 6 or 7 win total in order to keep the momentum going. And if they're able to win 8, 9, who knows, 10 games, if they run the table here through a bowl game, that really would set the table going into the offseason, keep that momentum going, and really help catapult this program, into the future. So we may look back 5-10 years from now and say, that senior class and getting Kyle McCord in that first year to lead the program offensively, it may be, as you said, kind of like laying the foundation for what is to come. All right, we're halfway home here on what is normally called the Quad Show. We're not on the Quad today because of the wet weather. We're in the studios here, the Galaxy Studios in Armory Square. We're going to take another time out. If you'd like to check in, we can take your phone calls at 315-437-7644. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.
Someone in the chat just said Elijah Clark is in sweats. He's out today. I don't think that makes a huge difference as far as pass defense goes, but he's one of their better tacklers in the secondary.
You wonder if today was Miami, if he would play.
Kev from Liverpool, is your son getting NIL money today? I wish. Because you're on the show. He's asking if you were getting paid for it. I said, nope, not from me. I don't think they can hear you from there now.
All right, we'll do this day in SU history right here.
Okay. So I looked up after you came in and said that earlier, and they actually beat Ohio State in the bowl game.
Yes, right.
I was like, what? Was that the Ohio State year? So I went and looked it up, and it was. And then Ohio State came to the Dome the next year and beat them by 23, 35-12. I want to say when they played in that bowl game, did we have like a party at my house or something? Or like, did we go somewhere? I feel like there was an Ohio State fan that was there watching.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I think it was at my house, but I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. But for some reason, I thought like, I don't know, my dad had work friends over and one of them was an Ohio State fan. And we were trash talking them during the game, I think. Nothing inappropriate, just good-natured ribbing, which is all fine. As long as you don't cross the line. That's right. Hello, good sir. You are a gentleman and a scholar, but your choice in football team is subpar.
It's funny, like, the way that you're talking like that. I feel like that was my first experience with Clemson fans. Was like when
they're super nice.
They're super nice. Yeah. They're just like all like, you know, they're all about hospitality, and you know they've got the thing where they give the $2 bills everywhere they go, and I don't know, they're just like a sophisticated fan base.
Yeah, I ran into, I think the first time Clemson came here, I think they won 42-14 that game. But yeah, I bumped into a few, you know, kind of out in the hallways and whatever else. And yeah, they were just, you know, chit-chatting with other Syracuse fans, like, oh yeah, you know, we're so glad you're in the ACC. It's fun.
Right.
And
yeah.
Best of luck the rest of the season. And I think it was Scott Schaefer was head coach at that point. I was like, you know, Scott Schaefer seems like a really good coach, and your defense is going to be good. And like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, then a couple years later, Rutgers comes in, and they're like, you suck. We hate you. You're a joke. Just. Yeah, Rutgers fan base a little delusional on what their football team is.
Well, right, most fan bases like are annoying. Like,
yes.
And I get like I know Bills fans are annoying too, like to other fan bases, but like Clemson fans, it's just like they want to be your friend.
I know they do. They really do. I think it's different probably when they play South Carolina. Might be a little different.
Probably, yeah, that's probably true.
A little bigger rivalry. That's right. That's right. Even though they're trying to get out, I think. But maybe not as actively as Florida State. San Diego Cuse says that Cal fans were nice.
Okay.
That's good to know.
And what's not to like? They're in California. You know, they're all laid back in California.
Yeah.
Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you. We are coming to you live from the ESPN Radio studios in Armory Square, not on the quad today due to the wet weather. We got about a half an hour left. And again, if you would like to check in, feel free to do so, 315-437-7644. As we get to This Day in SU Memories, brought to you by the Shep Family Funeral Home. And we go back to this day, November 23rd, 1991. Syracuse taking on West Virginia inside the Dome. The Orange rallies for a 16-10 win to improve to 9-2 on the season. That was actually the regular season finale that year, back when they wrapped up the season a little bit earlier and only played 11 games. But they finish up 9-2. Marvin Graves helping to get the job done on that day.
And for those wondering, yes, that was the same year as the Kirby Dardar versus Florida game. That was the same year as that. But yeah, I mean, I think Marvin Graves is kind of one of those players that when you talk about the best quarterbacks in Syracuse history is forgotten about. And when he left, he was up there among the best in the program in basically every category. He was a fantastic player. And that season, they finished the year 10-2 after beating 25th ranked Ohio State 24-17 in the bowl game, January 1st bowl game. So that was a huge game for them because it catapulted them to a massive bowl game, great program recognition, and a monster win for the program.
Marvin Graves had a touchdown in the fourth quarter. John Biskup, 3 field goals that day, including a 49-yarder, and then Tim Sandquist sealed the win with an interception at the 2-yard line as Syracuse beat West Virginia that day, 16-10. That is This Day in SU Memories, brought to you by Shep Family Funeral Home. Celebrate your loved one with help from Shep Family Funeral Home. Visit shepfamily.com. And you mentioned that they played in a January 1st bowl game that year, the Hall of Fame game down in Tampa against Ohio State. Marquee opponent, marquee destination, marquee time again with January 1st. And listen, I mean, it's important they're going to a bowl game, and I get that, but it would really be nice to see this team rewarded with a warm weather bowl, a destination type game, a Power 4 opponent. How much does that matter to you, Mike? Because I know a lot of folks around here roll their eyes, kind of me included, with talk of Pinstripe Bowl. Like, we've been there, done that in terms of covering that, and I know fans have been there, done that in terms of attending that game. Even the Fenway Bowl, like, it would be different, but it would be, the opponent likely would be kind of lacking, and it would be a cold weather game, and Military Bowl, same kind of thing. Like, how important is it to go to like Florida or Texas or California and to play a Power 4 opponent in a bowl game? I think that matters, especially whenever all the bowl games are announced, and you always get all the national pundits to come out with, the best matchups, etc. If Syracuse is playing Rice, that's not going to be anywhere on that list. Sure. If Syracuse is playing Texas Tech in Florida or California or something like that, then that's a game that could get on some of those lists. It's all about the more attention, the more buzz, etc. The higher caliber, higher quality bowl you can get to all helps. And to your point, if Syracuse goes back to a Pinstripe Bowl, it just feels like it's more of the same, because that feels like a bowl game that you get to when you barely squeak to 6-6 right, and you find a way to get there. It's like it's always there, right? It's like it's kind of like your severe backup plan, right, your emergency backup plan, right? You don't want to have to use it if you don't have to. The Fenway Bowl, as a Red Sox fan, would be cool for me, but I don't think Fran Brown, the team, and the university really care about me going to watch a football team that I cover in my baseball team stadium. Right. They don't care about that. But it would be cool for me personally. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, warm weather destination, it's good for everybody involved. It's a nice reward, and feels more like you accomplished something meaningful than it does to go back to the Pinstripe Bowl. I didn't know I had been working with a Red Sox fan all this time. This kind of changes everything for me. My dad is a Yankees fan. Okay. So is that why? Is that why you just picked the opposite? I was a rebel because it was my family, and then like all of my friends were all Yankees fans, and I just said I'm rooting for your rival because I was a pain in the butt. That was really it. All right, that's fair. I was talking with Fran Brown the other day, and he brought up the bowl game, and he said, we really want to go to a bowl game after Christmas. Like, that is first and foremost, the idea, because he said before Christmas, it's like you're not even in the postseason. He said nobody's paying attention, everybody's shopping, and nobody's invested, right? After Christmas, the closer you get to New Year's and beyond, then it's college football, and NFL fans are invested as well. It's around playoff time, and so there's certainly more excitement So it'd be nice. I mean, and if they can win today, you obviously up your chance of getting one of those nicer destinations, even if you lose to Miami. And I see somebody in the chat, San Diego Cuse in the chat mentions Gator Bowl representatives will be in the house today. I know Peach Bowl representatives were here. And again, sometimes people get excited about that. They send representatives to a lot of different games, it's not like the Gator Bowl is just here today. Right. But the fact that they're coming to that's a good sign. The Peach Bowl, they were going to come either way, just to check out a different venue. But it's good for these representatives to see your program up close and personal. Hopefully the crowd will be a good one today. You never know when the students aren't there. It's a noon game against UConn, and I have talked to several people this week who are kind of like, well, I don't know if I'm going this week, but I will go next week. And you hope that there's not too many people like that. You don't want it to be an empty dome. Today, you hope that they get a decent crowd today, and then next week, I do think if they win today and get to 8-3, and Miami's coming here, again, assuming Miami takes care of business, that would be for a spot in the ACC title game for Miami. You hope that they can sell out or get as close to a sellout as possible, because I think that would be a bad look if there's like 37,000 next week for Syracuse-Miami.
Yeah, it would, and I'm with you. I think a win today sets up the potential that could be a massive game for the crowd, everything else. But, to your point with the bowl games, Syracuse wins today, and even if they're competitive against Miami, they don't get run out of the building, which I don't expect, but you never know. Miami is really good. If they're even competitive in that game, win or lose, I think Syracuse has a lot that could be attractive to a bowl team. Fran Brown has gotten a lot of attention this whole season, right? You've got, we don't know if he would play, et cetera, but you've got a Kyle McCord who's, a potential NFL prospect at quarterback. And if he wants one more game to maybe try to up his stock a little bit, maybe he decides to play. There's a lot of things I think that are attractive about Syracuse. And they've traveled pretty well this season on the road. You think of the UNLV game, there were a lot of Syracuse fans there. There were a lot of Syracuse fans at the Cal game. I think maybe more Syracuse fans than Cal fans, or pretty close anyway. And they have traveled well to bowl games in the past. So there are some things about Syracuse that would be attractive to a bowl game. So certainly winning today would help get there.
I hosted the Fran Brown show at Heritage Hill on Wednesday. Matt Park was out of town, and I filled in for him, and we talked about the bowl game and whether or not guys would be opting out and if those conversations have taken place yet. And he said kind of what you would expect him to say. There's still 2 games left in the regular season. We're not really talking about that, but he said when the time comes, we will have those conversations and we will do what is best for the player. And he said that doesn't necessarily mean what's best for the player is to sit out. He said, and he didn't mention Kyle McCord by name, but I kind of got the sense he was talking about Kyle McCord. If you play a marquee opponent on a marquee stage in a good time slot in a good bowl game, like that can be a showcase for him.
Yes.
To potentially improve his draft stock. It's not just he's not going to play because he's going to get ready for the draft. That might be a way to get ready for the draft, to go and show everybody what you can do against an SEC opponent or whatever the case may be. Whereas if you're playing in Pinstripe or Fenway, then you might be more inclined to just be like, I'm good, I'm going to wait and get ready for the draft. So that may play into it.
Yeah, I mean, if Kyle McCord throws for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns against Rice, as I use as an example, does that really move the needle?
No.
As opposed to if they play on December 27th, for example, and they're playing against, I don't know, Vanderbilt, a kind of a hot name in the SEC, right? They've had a much better year than people expected. Let's say you're playing against a Vanderbilt type of a team, and he throws for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns against an SEC team, whether it's Vanderbilt, maybe a Missouri that's been in and out of the rankings. That might get some scouts to say,
yeah,
okay.
Right.
So, I mean, he's not someone who is a lock first-round type pick. You look at guys in the past like the Caleb Williams and some of those other guys that have sat out when they're not in the playoff and they know they're a first-round pick, top 10 type pick. That's not the situation Kyle McCord is in. I think if he was in that situation where he was a bona fide first-round almost lock, that it almost wouldn't matter what bowl game you're in, then you probably sit out to protect yourself. But given where he is on draft boards, kind of a mid to late round type of pick, he's got a chance, I think, to help his stock with a really strong performance against a good team.
Before we came on the air today, you brought up game day, and that if they win today, and again, assuming Miami win, Miami's got Wake Forest. Yeah. So we assume Miami's going to win. They're like a 3-touchdown favorite, more than a 3-touchdown favorite. Assuming both teams take care of business, what are the chances in your mind that Syracuse, Miami would be, I guess, even considered to be an option for game day?
I think it would be considered. I think it would certainly be in the discussion. You start looking at the games for next week, right? You've got, Colorado is always kind of a sexy team, but they're playing Oklahoma State, who stinks. You've got Ole Miss, who's playing Mississippi State. That's always a good rivalry, but Mississippi State's 2-8. Georgia Tech, I don't think that game would move the needle. You've got USC, Notre Dame, but USC's kind of meh. They're really Clemson, South Carolina is really that and Texas A&M. Those are the only two games between where both teams are ranked.
Yeah.
Could they go to Texas A&M? That's a possibility. I think that is a better game nationally than what Syracuse-Miami is. But if you've got a top 10 Miami team and a ranked Syracuse team, you've never been to Syracuse. They've said the last couple of years they are sort of using that, where haven't we been, and kind of prioritizing that. It's the perfect reason to go to Syracuse, is when you have that marquee matchup. Syracuse has been good. They'd be 8-3. You'll have a 10-1 Miami team, both ranked. We know what's on the line with Miami going to the ACC championship game, because if Miami doesn't go to the ACC championship game, they're likely not getting into the college football playoff. So there is a ton on the line from that perspective. And you've got all the storylines with Fran Brown and the recruiting and all of that, Kyle McCord and Ohio State. You've got a ton from a journalistic standpoint that you can focus on. So I think there's a at least better than solid chance that Syracuse gets that game day. They will at least be in the discussion and get strong consideration.
All right. We do have to take our final time out here. We've got about 10 minutes or so left on our show, 15, 20 minutes away from kickoff here between Syracuse and UConn. We are back after this on ESPN Radio.
Yeah, San Diego, I agree from in a vacuum standpoint. It really depends on how much of an emphasis they're putting on going to places they haven't been before. Like, the downside is they have been to a Miami game this year. They went to Cal when Cal hosted Miami. So, Texas A&M is the better game. But if they do put any level of priority on going places they haven't gone before, I don't know that Syracuse is really going to have a realistic shot at that next year, given what their schedule is. They've got at Tennessee. And is Notre Dame at Notre Dame, or is that a neutral? I don't remember off the top of my head. But they've got those. I think they got to play at Clemson.
Yeah, at Clemson.
It's a tough schedule next year. And we don't even
I think
know
it's at Notre Dame.
I think it is too. I'm just not 100% sure.
Yeah, at Notre Dame.
That's going to be a tough one.
Clemson away, SMU away, Miami away. Good luck.
Right.
Goodness gracious, man!
That road's. Even at Georgia Tech, although they won't have their
Haynes King.
Yeah, their freshman quarterback just helped them beat Miami. So, but yeah, you'll have UConn and Colgate in the Dome. Tennessee is technically neutral, but it's in Georgia, so there's going to be more Tennessee fans there. But does SMU's quarterback have more eligibility, or is he done?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Let me see. Jennings, he's a sophomore, so yeah, he'll be back. There, Preston Stone, wasn't he supposed to be the guy? Thought Preston Stone was supposed to be their quarterback this year. And instead it's been this year.
Yeah, Jennings' first year, he only played 4 games, so they preserved his red shirt. So, yeah, because this is his 3rd year in college. But, yeah, you're right. He's only there. Eligibility-wise, he's got 2 years left.
Yeah.
You never know these days, right?
You never know.
Like Derek McDonald's been in school 4 years, but he's got 2 years left, I believe.
That's when my dad took my brother and I to Yankees-Red Sox game in Yankee Stadium. I didn't ask for a ball. They were doing batting practice. Red Sox were out on the field. and I was up in the stands. I think it was in the right field bleachers, and one of the coaches that was catching the fly balls during batting practice saw me and yelled up, was trying to get my attention, but I was oblivious. So some Yankees fans that were sitting there started like yelling at me. We're like, "Hey, someone on the field's trying to get your attention." I'm like, "What?" And I looked down there. One of the coaches, the bench coaches that was down there, saw me, pointed at me, and then tossed me one of the batting practice balls. And
That's cool.
I still have it. I was like, "All right, we can go. I'm done. I'm good." Was that Yankees? Oh, I don't know exactly where it is.
Well, I didn't go to watch it. We were in Baltimore, so we were about 45 seconds. And they were doing batting practice. I can't remember who it was. It was the first baseman for the Orioles at the time. He was swinging his bat, and then all of a sudden he stopped and started looking at it. And the coach started looking at it, and then he turned around and started walking. We were at first base. Walked over, there's probably like 30 kids there. And he walked right up to my friend and goes, "Do you want this bat?" The kid next to him. And my friend was crushed. Because he like looked, he was making eye contact. We both thought he was going to get his bat. He goes, "Do you want this?" So the kid next to him. So funny,
Yeah, that's fun.
yeah, because it had a crack in it, so we couldn't use it. So we gave the whole bat to the kid.
Oh, that's cool.
That'd be it.
What time's your off time, by the way? Is it 55? 55:20. Stephen Fonte, Mike McAllister with you. We got about 5 minutes left on the pregame show as we get to our home field advantage. It's brought to you by the Marriott Syracuse downtown. Mike, give me an area today. I think there are probably a few areas today that Syracuse has an edge, but what's at the top of the list?
I think Syracuse is going to have the ability to throw the ball on UConn. They're kind of in the 40s or 50s in pass defense. They're giving up a little over 200 yards a game, but I think Syracuse is going to have a chance to move the ball, and it's going to start with pass protection as it always does. If they give Kyle McCord time, I think he's going to be able to pick this defense apart. I think it's a defense that talent-wise, especially with their pass rush, is not as good as what they've faced the last 3-4 weeks. When you look at Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, Boston College, and Cal, those teams all had better pass rushes. So I think Syracuse is going to be able to keep Kyle McCord clean and should be able to throw the ball against UConn.
That's the home field advantage brought to you by the Marriott Syracuse downtown. Your home field advantage for breakfast, lunch, or dinner any day. Home of the home game tailgate and unbeatable with free parking and a $2 shuttle to and from the game. We brought up Kyle McCord, and we've brought him up throughout the show. I want to get your thoughts. This came up on our Orange Nation radio show the other day about best quarterbacks in SU history. And I think that, there's the three that everybody rattles off, Don McPherson, Donovan McNabb, Marvin Graves are kind of the three that everybody points to. If you were doing the Mount Rushmore, which is 4, not 5, I think if you did 5, it would be a little bit easier. But if you had to pick 4 of the, who are the best quarterbacks, I'll say of your lifetime to eliminate like Bill Hurley from the conversation, like best 4 quarterbacks of your lifetime. Who's getting that 4th spot? Is it Nassib? Is it Dungy? Is it Kyle McCord based on what he's done in this 1 year? Or is it too early to make that determination?
It's probably too, I want to see kind of how they finish this out. If they go 8-4, he's going to set the record for passing yards, and passing touchdowns are right there within grasp as well, and all that. But Donovan McNabb's always going to be my number one. I'm a Donovan McNabb homer. I'm a Donovan McNabb apologist. I am completely biased in that discussion. He'll always be number one for me. But Marvin Graves, I think, should be in there. I'd put Eric Dungy right there, too. So I might leave Kyle McCord out. It's just so tough because it's only one season, right? And that's if he was able to come back for a second year and do similar things in a second year, then I think he probably gets there. But as of right now, I'd probably leave him out. But he's certainly right there in the discussion. I'll tell you this. If they end up beating Miami and then he takes them to a good bowl game and they win that, then I'd probably reevaluate that and put him in there.
So right now, Dungy's 4th on your list, you would say? Yeah. Okay, that's fair. And I think you're splitting hairs when you get to that point. I mean, Nassib, Dungy, McCord, I mean, they all have it's a debate, right? You can at least make a strong case, I think, for all three of them. it's hard to ignore what he's done this year. As you said, it's only been 1 year, but he came here. We knew it was only going to be for 1 year. I think and I said this to Paulie the other day, I think the further we get away from this year, if Fran Brown is able to build on this success and Syracuse gets really good again and has success like they did in the 90s, we may even look more fondly on this year of Kyle McCord and say, well, yeah, that was a great year. They went 8-4, 9-3, or whatever it was, but like, look at what it led to, Yeah. So his legacy, it might not be written for another, 5-10 years or whatever the case may be. Looking around the rest of the ACC, we know the deal, right? SMU is undefeated in conference right now. They've got Virginia today. We expect that, certainly that they're going to be part of the ACC title game. It comes down between Miami and Clemson. If Miami finishes with 2 straight wins here, they're going to go. If not, it's going to be Clemson. Who do you think is the best team in this conference?
I think it's Miami.
Yeah?
I think they're the best team, but the best team doesn't always go. We know that. Now, I think SMU is really underappreciated. I watched them in a few games this year, and I think they are really good, and I think they are capable of beating both Miami and Clemson. But if I have to, if you're looking at who's favored in a neutral site game, right, between SMU and Clemson or SMU and Miami, I put SMU third in that group of 3 teams. That said, Miami has sort of played with its food a little bit, for lack of a better term, and have had some close games to teams that they probably shouldn't have. The fact that they probably should have lost to Virginia Tech, probably should have lost to Cal, and kind of got bailed out in those games. I think that it's very possible Syracuse beats them and keeps them out of the title game.
All right, we got 30 seconds left. We got to get to your prediction. Final score for today.
I've got Syracuse 38, UConn 24.
38-24. All right, I'm gonna go 35-17. I think it's a comfortable win. I think we're on the same page here. Syracuse wins this game. They move to 8-3. Bring on Miami next week. Got to take care of business today. First things first. We are out of time. Thanks so much for listening. For Mike McAllister, I'm Stephen Fonte. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.